My friend called me a predator after meeting my boyfriend, and now I can't look at her the same. When I 29F first moved into my apartment 2 years ago, I didn't expect it to become such a defining part of my life. It's a cozy building, just 3 floors, filled mostly with quiet older residents who mind their own business. On my first week there, I met Mrs. Green, an elderly woman in her late 70s who lived at the end of the hall. She reminded me of my grandmother, sweet, polite, always wearing floral blouses and house slippers. Mrs. Green didn't get around too well. I noticed early on that she had her groceries and prescriptions delivered, but her newspaper always sat downstairs on the ground floor. The delivery boy never brought it up, apparently. She used to pay some neighborhood kids to grab it for her, but they'd moved away before I arrived, so one morning I just picked it up for her. That tiny gesture became routine. Every morning before work, I'd grab her paper, leave it at her door, and sometimes we'd chat for a few minutes if she was up and the door was open. She'd always insist I come in for coffee. I started to really like our little talks. She'd tell me stories about her late husband, her garden back when she lived in the suburbs, and especially about her grandson, Jake. Her apartment was covered in photos of him. I mean covered, probably 20 or more. Framed baby pictures, school portraits, sports photos, him at a graduation. Even one where he looked like he was celebrating his 21st birthday. She'd beam every time she mentioned him. I never asked much about him. I just assumed he was around my age. I did think he was a really cute kid from the pictures. Round cheeks, bright eyes, that kind of smile that makes you think, that kid's gonna break hearts one day. Fast forward about a year later. I was coming home from work when I ran into this ridiculously good-looking guy in the lobby. Like the kind of handsome that makes you forget what you were about to say. He smiled at me, and there was something so familiar about him. It clicked when he introduced himself. "Hey, I'm Jake, visiting my grandma, Mrs. Green." I think I actually said, "Oh, you're the grandson from the pictures," and immediately cringed after. But he just laughed and said, "Yeah, guilty." We started talking more whenever he came by to see her. Sometimes I'd bump into him in the hallway. Sometimes Mrs. Green would invite me in while he was there. He was charming, easy to talk to, smart, kind, all the things that make your heart race a little faster than it should. Eventually, he asked me out. We went for coffee first, then dinner, then another date, and another. It felt easy, natural, no weirdness, no awkward age stuff. He was 30, so literally just a year older than me. We clicked in a way I hadn't with anyone else in a long time. 8 months later, we were solid. He'd met my parents. We'd done little trips together. He still visited his grandmother every week, and she always got this proud look when she saw us together. Like she had set us up herself last weekend. I decided it was time for him to meet my friends. My college group, there are 4 of them, Sarah, Megan, Josh, and Eric. My older sister, Emily, was in town too, so she came along. I was so excited. I'd told them all about Jake, and they'd been dying to meet him. We booked a nice dinner at this cozy place downtown. Everyone seemed to be having a good time. Laughing, joking, asking Jake questions. He was being his usual charming self, which made me feel proud, like, yep, that's my guy. I was telling the story about how we met, about Mrs. Green, the newspaper thing, how I used to see his pictures everywhere. Everyone seemed amused, like it was one of those small world coincidences. Jake got up to take a phone call, and that's when everything went sideways. Sarah, who had been pretty quiet up until that point, just leaned back in her chair and said, in this sharp voice, "So you saw his baby pictures before you met him, and then you started dating him?" I thought she was just teasing, so I laughed and said, "Yeah, I guess so. He's literally the same person, though, just taller." Then she said it. "So, you were basically crushing on a baby? You know that's kinda pedo behavior, right?" I swear my stomach dropped. I blinked at her, waiting for her to say she was kidding, but she didn't. She just stared at me, serious as hell. Sipping her drink, I asked, "Wait, what? Are you being serious right now?" And she said, "I know a pedophile when I see one." The whole table went quiet. You could hear the clinking of glasses from another table. I felt my face burning, not from embarrassment but from pure shock. My sister immediately snapped, "Sarah, what the hell is wrong with you?" Sarah just shrugged and muttered, "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking." Nobody else said a word, but you could feel how uncomfortable everyone was. I just stood up. I couldn't even look at her. I went to the restroom to calm down, and when I came back, I told the waiter to split the bill, for everyone except Sarah. And then I left with Jake, who had just come back from his call and was totally confused. In the Uber, I told him what she'd said. At first, he laughed because it sounded so absurd. But when he saw I was close to tears, he stopped and held my hand. He said, "Hey, she's out of line. You didn't do anything wrong." Later that night, Sarah texted me. I thought maybe she'd apologize. Nope. Her message said, "Besides being a predator, you're also petty and cheap. Hope that dinner was worth your reputation." I stared at my phone for a long time. I wanted to scream. I absolutely despise child abusers. The idea of anyone harming a child makes my blood boil. To have someone I considered a friend, someone I trusted, throw that word at me felt like being punched. And the thing is, I know Sarah was abused as a kid. She's told me before, in confidence. I've always been gentle with her about sensitive topics. I can't even imagine what she went through, but this was cruel. My sister told me I did the right thing. Megan and Eric both texted later saying Sarah was out of line. Josh said he didn't think I was a pedophile but admitted it was a little creepy, that I'd seen Jake's baby pictures before dating him. That stung too, even though I know he probably meant it awkwardly. Not maliciously. It's been a week, and it still eats at me. I keep replaying that moment in my head, like I'm trying to find the thing I did wrong. But I didn't do anything. I didn't even know Jake existed until he walked into that lobby. How could I possibly be guilty of something like that? Jake's been incredible through all of this. He keeps telling me it's ridiculous, that people see patterns where none exist. He even joked, "Guess we should burn my baby photos before someone calls the cops." I tried to laugh. But honestly, the whole situation has left me feeling sick. What hurts most is how easily someone can take your kindness and twist it into something dark. I helped his grandmother because it was the right thing to do. I never expected anything from it, and now I feel like Sarah turned a beautiful coincidence, one that led me to someone I truly love, into something ugly. I've thought about texting her, but every time I start typing, I stop. What would I even say? "Hey, can you please not call me a pedophile next time?" There's no coming back from that. Part of me still worries about her. I know her trauma runs deep, and maybe something about my story triggered her. But the adult in me knows that trauma doesn't give you the right to weaponize accusations like that. I haven't blocked her yet, but I muted her messages. My sister says I should cut her off completely. Jake agrees. Megan told me Sarah's been venting in a group chat, saying I'm gaslighting her and making her feel unsafe. I can't wrap my head around it. All I did was love someone. Stories number 2. My 27F boyfriend 30M spent our anniversary with another girl because he was angry my ex 28M visited my parents 2 weeks ago. It was mine and Mark's anniversary. We've been dating for 2 years. We had plans after he finished work, but he never showed up. I tried to call and text him, but he ignored me all day and didn't contact me until after 1 a.m. He was drunk and went on a rant about how I deserved this because I shouldn't have invited Jason, my ex, to my parents' house. I was pretty mad at him and told him I thought we should break up. He ended apologizing profusely and assuring me he would never do something like that again, and he was just feeling insecure. I decided to give him a second chance, to clarify about Jason. We had an amicable breakup 3 years ago because we didn't like having a long-distance relationship whilst he was away for med school. My dad had a heart attack a week before my anniversary, and Jason went to see him since his mom is friends with mine. Me and Mark turned up whilst he was there. Jason was discussing some of the treatment options the doctors had given my dad with my mom. He left a little while later. When he left, my mom made a comment about how helpful Jason was. Mark mentioned later that he didn't like that Jason was there or what my mom said about him, but I reassured him he was there as a family friend and not an ex. He seemed to be over it after that. Yesterday, Mark's friend Penelope mentioned how Mark had gone out with her and a group of her friends that day. I'm furious because he told me he had spent the day at a bar alone getting drunk. Mark doesn't understand why I'm angry over this since I already forgave him for missing our anniversary. Would breaking up with him be an overreaction? TLDR, my boyfriend got jealous because my ex visited my sick dad, so he stood me up on our anniversary as revenge. He claimed he was at a bar alone, but I just found out he was with a female friend and her friends. He doesn't understand why I'm angry. Edit to add more info. My parents are nice to my BF. They like him and have never mentioned Jason to him until this happened. They still talk to him, Jason, if they see him whenever he comes back for a visit. But as far as I know, they don't go out of their way to keep in contact with him anymore. I stopped talking to Jason 3 months into dating my BF because my BF said he didn't like it. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I would suggest it heavily. He's obviously not ready for something serious if he's going to throw a tantrum. purposely ditch your anniversary to then lie to your face and say he was drunk by himself. Then his female friend broke the actual truth to you that he wasn't alone and was drunk with friends, while you were, I'm guessing, clearly upset and angry for missing an important date. He never tried to hear why your ex was there, I'm guessing, and wanted to punish you? If so, that's childish, and I wouldn't want to be stuck dating a man-child that would rather be petty than actually talk. Reply: we did talk about my ex being there, and he seemed to understand, only to pull this a week later. Commenter 2: wait, so you both had a talk about this, and we're okay with everything? Then he acts passive-aggressively and like a man-child about it. Reply: yup. Commenter 3: it kind of sounds like he cheated on you a little bit. Reply: he says he didn't. Commenter 4: first paragraph you said you invited the ex over, or at least that is what your current boyfriend thinks. Second paragraph makes it sound like ex just showed up on his own to check in on your dad. Your boyfriend definitely should have talked to you in either situation. If it was the second situation, then he is definitely overreacting. If it was the first situation, then he is still overreacting, but he does have some possible reasonable concerns, albeit also maybe from insecurity. There is more to it than just your ex being there. Your boyfriend needs to communicate whatever he is feeling or thinking to you. Sounds like the communication between you two needs some work. Like most answers on here, just communicate with each other. If you or him aren't willing to be open and honest with one another, then I'd recommend reconsidering a relationship together. Reply: sorry for the confusion, I didn't invite him, but my BF assumed I did. Commenter 5: I would dump his Your dad was sick. A good boyfriend would understand that. Your ex was there to help, then your boyfriend ditched you to get revenge, and lied to you about where he was. I think you should talk to him, and then dump him. Why did you even get together with him in the first place? He seems like a jerk. I'm sure you can find a better guy. One that will understand that your father's health is far more important to you than ghosting your ex. You are both adults. You didn't cheat on your boyfriend. You didn't do anything wrong. Then he hang out with another girl on your anniversary, and lied about it. You deserve the sun, and all you have now is a light bulb. Dump him. Reply: he seems like a jerk. He wasn't like this before. OP on why Jason was there at the hospital. Reply: Jason's mom asked him to go because the doctor my parents spoke to didn't explain the treatment options very well, and he clarified them to reassure my mom. I didn't even know he was going to be there. If Mark's ex did the same thing, I wouldn't be upset. I would be happy his parents were getting support and reassurance during a difficult time. He's finished med school. He was dumbing down the treatment options, because the doc my parents saw didn't speak to them for very long, and was very rush. So my mom was overwhelmed by it all. It was more to help reassure my mom than anything else. OOP responds to a downvoted comment about her current BF and her being toxic, with her wanting to break up. Reply: no. I said we should break up because he stood me up on our anniversary and then called me drunk to blame me for it. Did Jason have OOP's number? Reply: Jason doesn't have my number, and my BF asked me to block him on everything, so it's not like he could ask me even if he wanted to. Update: after I posted my original post, I asked Mark for some space to think, and went to stay with my parents. He was upset, but said he would respect my decision. He did send me one text after I left which said he was sorry, and he loved me. Jason's mom called me the day after to ask if she could give him my number. This was very random since he's always respected my decision not to stay in touch with him, so I figured it had to be something important. I gave her the go-ahead, and Jason called me later in the day. He sounded pretty irritated on the phone and asked me to tell my boyfriend to leave him alone. Mark had been harassing him on Facebook all day since I moved out. He'd sent him some nasty and threatening messages, and he also commented on every picture that included me on his profile. Mark's messages read like he was drunk. Not that that is an excuse. Jason did block him, but Mark kept making new accounts. I was super embarrassed by his behavior and apologized to Jason and told him I'd talk to Mark. Mark denied it. He tried to say Jason faked the screenshots he sent me to make Mark look bad. When I told him I didn't believe him, he got angry and tried to twist it back onto me again. He asked me why Jason even had my number, why we were even talking to each other, and he accused me of letting him ruin our relationship. He also made a comment about how I should just go fuck Jason if that's what I wanted. I think my relationship is dead. I wanted to try to address his jealousy and how he handles it to see if we could work things out. But he just isn't willing, able to talk about it without getting defensive. The last conversation I had with Jason was him sending me a screenshot of Mark apologizing to him. But this just feels performative now. I don't really know what I'll do now, but I'll post a final update when I've made my decision. TL. DR. I went to stay with my parents so I could have space to think about the state of our relationship. My BF decided to use that time to harass my ex over Facebook. He still refuses to see his jealousy is irrational and twists everything to make it my fault. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Are Jason and your parents close? Do they meet regularly? Reply, he was close to them when we dated and they still saw him occasionally after. Whenever he came home for the holidays, if they went over to his parents' place whilst he was there. But they don't go out of their way to meet as far as I'm aware. Commenter 2. Just a tad bit strange how close your ex is with your parents, lol. Just saying, not making excuses for your new BF, but whatever. Reply, they've known him ex's whole life if that makes it less strange. Stories number 3. AITA for refusing to share my work files after being laid off and rehired as a contractor. I 29F worked for a small architecture firm for 4 years. I handled client proposals, design drafts, and managed several long-term projects 2 months ago. The company announced restructuring, and I was laid off. It sucked, but I got severance and started freelancing. Last week, my old boss called asking if I'd consider coming back, but as a contractor, not an employee. I agreed short-term, just to finish the projects I had started. Here's where it gets weird. They asked me to hand over all my design files from the past year, including projects I did while I was freelancing, since they were based on ideas developed during employment. Those freelance projects have different clients and were done after my layoff. I refused, saying those were my intellectual property. My old boss accused me of being vindictive and said I was holding company work hostage. But the truth is, I only used my own drafts and skills, not their resources or clients. Now they're threatening not to renew my contract and saying I'll burn bridges in the industry. My boyfriend thinks I should just hand them over to keep peace, but it feels like they're taking advantage AITA for refusing to share my files. Comments. Commenter 1. Your BF is an idiot. NTA. Tell them if they are accusing you of stealing that you'll sue them for defamation. So they better watch WTF they say because you don't respond to threats. ETA. To be clear, I'm referring to your freelancing work, which is clearly legally yours. ETA typo. Commenter 2. NTA. They don't own your work after you were laid off, period. Once they ended your employment and paid severance, that was the end of your obligation to them. Anything you created after that point, especially for different clients, and using your own time and tools, belongs entirely to you. Commenter 3. They brought you back as a contractor to get your work products. They will drop you again as soon as they can after getting their hands on your intellectual property. I'm not saying your boyfriend has no idea what he's talking about, but he apparently has never been misused by an employer and is a bit too trusting in my opinion. Commenter 4. Newsflash. They only rehired you to get those important files back because they know once your severance was completed, your legal obligations contractually were complete. If they would like those files and all future files, it'll be a few separate of your consultant fees. Stories number 4. Went for a tire change. Found a tracker under my car, placed by my roommate. How do I go about this? I'm a 25 female, my roommate is a 34 male. I moved to a new town last year. Only knew one person. Stayed with her for a bit until I found a house to rent, but I needed a roommate. She introduced me to a guy she worked with who also needed a roommate because he just got a divorce. I met him first. Didn't get weird vibes. Seemed nice enough. About 6 months ago, he made the suggestion to be friends with benefits, and I made the stupid mistake of agreeing. We both did not want a relationship. Everything was fine, until he started getting weird and staying up until I got home, questioning me about where I had been and who I was around. I then ended the hooking up, told him I didn't think it was like that. He got mad. Everything was fine for a bit. Until yesterday, I live in a pretty rural area where most businesses are small and family-owned. Since not a lot of people are getting out, I decided to go ahead and get some new tires and support a mechanic shop I go to, since I doubt they're getting regular business at the moment. I'm there waiting when the guy comes over and tells me he wants to show me something. I'm like, okay. We go over to my car and he bends down and points under at a black box. He asks me if I know what that is and tells me it's a GPS. It took me a second to understand the implications of a GPS being under my car. I was like, so someone put it there? It's clear I have no idea why it's there, and he got actually concerned and told me if I didn't know I needed to find out. I feel so creeped out because I have no friends here. The friend I knew moved away. I only know some people at work, but we're not friends, and it's been hard to meet people. There's no other way a GPS would be on my car unless my roommate put it there. Now I'm freaked out in a way I've never been before, and I can't move out. I'm scared to ask him about it. I have no one to stay with, no family here. What do I do? Do I just ask him about it outright? I left the GPS there because I don't want him to know I know at the moment. What do I do? Relevant commenter un. That is really creepy. Start planning your exit. Document everything. Commenter 2. I would be concerned there are cameras in your bedroom and bathroom. Honestly, I would not feel safe to return home. I would immediately call police and file a report. There are devices you get from a spy store that can scan for the frequency of hidden cameras. But I would not even waste my time with that. My peace of mind would be worth a terminated lease and breach in contract, which a police report would help you in civil court. Should you have to go, run, do not walk to the nearest exit. Commenter 3. Be specific as to how you know. Not what you think or believe, but what actual proof do you have that your roommate put the GPS on your car? What I read is that some guy found something on your car. Reply, it's a small magnetic tracking device. Who else would it have been? I know no one, and this place is too rural for any kind of crime organization like stealing cars. No one would steal my 7-year-old car anyway. Maybe the car dealership put it there? I own it. I've had it for about 7 years. Since I started college, paid for it in cash outright. Update March 30th, 2020. Next day update. I'm gonna put them here. I'm still reading through the comments. Thank you guys. There's really great advice I'm going to follow. PSA. I bought my car brand new 7 years ago and paid for it in cash. I've never owed anything on it. So last night I decided to subtly pack my things and plan on making the drive at some point today back to my hometown. He works during the day, but I work from home because my office is closed until at least this summer. I realized I could probably fit all of my stuff in my car, and since my lease ends in May anyway, so I'm just moving out. The only furniture that's mine and not the landlord's or his is my bed, and it's old, so I think I'm just going to leave it here. I went down to the police station early this morning and had them remove it. I don't think there's much they can do besides document it. They asked me some questions and I said I didn't know, but I know no one here, and think it might be my roommate. They said it looked like a cheap one from Amazon or eBay and they'll check it out. Honestly, I may just end up staying home. I miss being in a familiar place where I know basically everyone in town and I miss my friends. Working from home for a few months might give me enough time to switch jobs. So that's all I have for now. Thank you guys. I'll try to reply to people as well. Relevant comments. OP replying to a downvoted commenter on dealing with the police. I've already gone to the police. Even if I had told them, yep, totally my roommate did it, I know it. I didn't. I simply strongly suggested it. That is not grounds for someone's life to be ruined. They wouldn't even take that as fact until it was proven. Even if they find definitive proof, I'd have to go through with pressing charges. If I did press charges, then it would be a simple misdemeanor. And at that point, if he got a misdemeanor, it would be rightly justified since it was all proven. And that's if I would even bother with charges in the first place. All of this minor things compared to if he was an insane loose cannon that could hurt me if I just didn't mention his name. It's ignorant to not piece together the clues and be safe rather than sorry. Instead of just saying, nope, I have no clue, because I do have a clue, and I know it's him. I plan on asking him later today after my 8-hour drive home, so I'm interested in hearing what he has to say. Update, since I think it'll be lost in the comments. If anyone is curious, already mentioned I went to the police home. All settled in now. Ended up asking him about it via phone. He admitted to it. Got freaked out when I said I gave it to the police. Said he was concerned for my safety when I would go places by myself after work. Yeah, okay, we got into a scuffle about it. He finally snapped and said that he knew. I was seeing someone when I was hooking up with him. I wasn't, so yeah. My first experience with crazy. And hopefully my last. Stories number 5. My M28 fiancé F28 randomly ended our relationship. Is this abuse? I'm not sure if this is the right place for this. Please forgive the long post. My 28M fiancé 28 Foss always been very controlling. She gets upset when I don't do things exactly right, and often contradicts herself. She wants me to go out and be more social, but will call and yell at me when I do. She wants me off my phone, but sits there on hers. She wants me to go to the gym but complains when I'm there too long. Honestly, I've been pretty love-struck, so I didn't really pick up on these things until everything fell apart. She has a bit of a drinking problem. Not that she drinks constantly, but when she does, she doesn't know her limit, with wedding planning, and my busy work schedule to pay for the wedding. She tends to go out on weekends with her girlfriends since I'm home late anyway, and she enjoys it, so she deserves to unwind after a busy week. We typically do lunches and overnight trips when my schedule will allow it, and when I'm off in the evenings we make dinner together to connect. She's nitpicked before, but I kind of wrote it off as her personality and always adjusted. She didn't want me running the washer-dryer so much. So I went from twice to once a week. I worked 2 jobs, and one is construction, so my clothes get dirty fast. She thought I had too much clothes, even though we each have the same storage space, so I donated the clothes she didn't like. She didn't like when I cooked late coming home from my second job event staff, so I would pick something up on the way home. I felt like this was regular couple stuff. All in all, she's been excited about the wedding and our new apartment, so I thought everything was good. Long story short, a few weeks ago she came home hammered, which is nothing new. But she got outright mean. I wrote it off as just being drunk. Sometimes she playfully teases me when she's drinking, but when she sobered up, she was still really mean. Her controlling attitude escalated until she was pretty much unbearable, and she ended up telling me she deserved better, and that she wanted to start over, and I needed to leave. She started listing all these weird faults. I don't get along with her friends who I have never met because they don't live in our country. I don't make an effort with her family. I'm very close to her brother. We game often together, and we have dinner with her parents once a month. And that I'm too dependent on her. I do tend to put her first a lot. But I kind of thought that was normal. Then she basically told me to leave. I gave her some space and slept at my brother's a few nights, asking how he thought I should fix this. And it was then that he pointed out that she is kind of abusive, so maybe this was a good thing. I don't know. She's still the love of my life, and I can't wrap my head around all this. After a few nights, I went back because I needed more clothes, but also because I wanted to see if we could talk things out. She flat out refused and said her friends all agreed. My issue now is she is downright hostile. She is nice every so often when she wants something, but other than that, she is short, cold, often annoyed. She basically said we're done, and she's keeping the apartment, and I need to figure it out. Then radio silence for a month outside of a few drunk "I miss you" texts while I couch hopped. The last time I went over to grab clothes, she kissed me and basically said she wished things could be different and talked about the proposal and all the little things we've done together. So I tried to talk it out again, but she got super angry and kicked me out again. Now, she is telling me I need to pay half the rent because I'm on the lease. I spoke to the landlord about potentially removing me from the lease, but he said she has to agree, and she's refusing. She's refusing to agree to sign the lease over to someone else. What can I even do here? My brother pointed out that since I'm on the lease, she can't keep me from staying there, but the apartment is small. Being practically on top of one another, I can't see how it will work with her behavior. She's refusing to even be civil. I asked her to reconsider finding a new tenant, and she basically says she doesn't see why she should have to move just because I couldn't change. My brother said I could make a case for abuse to get off the lease, but I don't want to do that to her. She can be mean, but she's a nice person, and we've been together for 6 years. I just feel like that's a step too far. My mother agrees. I honestly don't think this is abuse. Is this abuse? They're really pushing that I go forward with this, especially after my brother read some texts. But I feel like if I end the tenancy citing abuse, that's dishonest and could further upset her. Update: my M28 fiancé F28 randomly ended our relationship. Is this abuse? A day or so after I made the first post, my brother sat me down and kind of discussed a game plan with me. The first thing he told me to do was take the money I had put in a joint account meant for our wedding out, since she had access to that, and she was pretty pissed at me, not sure why. Since she ended things and I only recently found out it was because she cheated. I had been saving for over a year, sometimes putting in as much as $600 a month, and I also put my Christmas bonus in there. I don't know what I expected to happen after I did that, but things escalated pretty quickly after that. I had screenshots of how out of control the texts got, but it won't let me add them to this post. The long and short of it was, she was upset that I all but emptied the account, only leaving what she had contributed. She had only put a couple thousand in because toward the beginning of planning, she decided I should be the one to pay for the bulk of the wedding. Looking back now, I can't believe I agreed. Her argument was that I should have kept all my money in the account to pay for my portion of the rent, and that I had stolen from her. She kept calling me a thief, even when I showed her a screenshot of my banking transfers into the account, and that I only transferred out that exact amount. She only got more upset because I refused to talk to her in person, or answer the phone so I could have everything we discussed in texts. She had her dad call me, basically telling me to do the right thing, which just meant to give her all the money I'd saved since it was for her anyways. When I refused, she started calling my mother almost non-stop. She would start calling her around 9 p.m. and sometimes wouldn't stop until 1 a.m. At first, I told my mom to block her number, but my brother said to just put it on silent so we had a record of how often she was calling. One night she called my mom 36 times. My mother has been having some health issues since my father passed in June, so my sister has been living with her, and the calls obviously made my sister upset, and it's a whole thing now. My sister ended up filing a harassment report with the police, and we're hoping that will help me get off the lease if we can prove she's being abusive. She also called both my ex and her father, and told them if they had anything to say, it would go through her. I filled out an N-15 form, but the officer I spoke to about the harassment didn't seem convinced it would be approved because he wouldn't classify this as domestic abuse. I guess I'll just have to cross my fingers and hope for the best. All this definitely showed me who she is. I didn't think I could fall out of love with someone so quickly. Thanks for all the replies to my initial post. Comments, commenter 1, definitely harassment. The fact her father thinks you should pay for his cheating daughter tells me why she lacks integrity. Commenter 2, I'd talk to your landlord in person. Show the harassment, the escalation, that you need to get out of here and the only tie left is the lease. You might not legally have a case yet, but if there's good cause, some will work with you. Let them know you physically vacated on whatever date. Reply. I spoke to the landlord shortly after the breakup, and he was very clear about my options, based on how dismissive he was of everything. I don't see that changing unless she agrees to have the lease reassigned to her. Commenter 2, reply, damn, I had hoped. I've had it go both ways. One, it had to escalate to handing them a police report and showing how bad it was. My management moved quickly, thankfully. Another was creatively using a lawyer to apply pressure to my ex to set me free. I was going to sue for harassment and other things, but if he let me off the lease and agreed to bow contact, I'd let it go. It was hell. I'm so sorry. My heart goes out to you. Commenter 3. It's harassment. I just read your first post. Most people picture alcoholics as daily drinkers. That's end stage. If you can't stop once you start, you have a problem. Bullet dodged. Don't put anything in text or email you don't want a judge to read. Save everything she sends and don't respond. She's going to bury herself. I do think you should have left her $2K in the account. Hopefully it won't get that far, but restraining order. You have to prove or show a reasonable claim that you are afraid of her. Property damage, etc., will occur if she's not kept away. I would suggest one text. Please don't contact me or my family again. As you know, my mother has had health issues since Dad died in June, and 36 calls in one day is a stress that affects her health. Thank you. Nobody will be responding or reaching out. This sets her up, and because she's a drunk, she won't listen. That's actually a win. I think it's really important you mention the effect on your mother's health, because it's a fact that stress can greatly impact health. The most important thing is that when you fill out an order of protection is showing cause for reasonable concern for damage in the future. She will provide the ammunition. Good luck. Commenter 4. I'm glad for you that she ended it. She is one huge red flags. Please work on your self-respect and worth so you don't put up with this again. You may want to see an attorney and make her communicate with them. When does your lease run out? Reply, I'm in the process of looking for an attorney. Unfortunately, the lease is until October 2026. Stories number 6. My husband told me he hated me while we were being intimate, and now he's acting like it's not a big deal. This is my first Reddit post. It feels wild sharing this online, but I don't feel comfortable talking to my friends or family about it. I'm at a loss right now and truly do not know how to feel. My husband, 28M, and I, 28F, have been married for almost 2 years. Lately, it feels like we've been fighting about everything, both big and small. A few days ago during an argument, I told him for the first time that it felt like he hated me. He immediately apologized, comforted me, and said that wasn't true. He assured me that he loved me and never wanted me to feel that way. Later that same night, we went over to our neighbor's house to watch the UFC fights. We both had a few drinks while we were there. Nothing crazy, though. When we had got home, we started being intimate. We've always had a playful and good dynamic in that area, and we're comfortable with each other. We both enjoyed some dirty talk with each other and had been doing it for years. But this time, something felt different. In the middle of us having sex, he leaned in close and whispered in my ear, "I hate you." I froze, thinking surely I must have misheard him. But then he doubled down and said it again. I immediately told him to stop. I don't even think he realized I was serious until I yelled at him to get off of me. I was completely shocked and couldn't even find the words to say to him in that moment, so I just ended up sleeping in the guest room that night. The next morning, we had plans to go to Costco. The car ride was silent and tense until I finally brought it up. I told him how weird and hurtful it was that he said that to me. He brushed it off, saying that he was just drunk, that he didn't mean it, and that IT was just part of dirty talk. He convinced me that I was overreacting. But this wasn't the same as what we've done before. Not even close, especially because earlier that very day, I told him it felt like he hated me. And then he said those exact words during one of our most vulnerable moments. By the time we pulled into the Costco parking lot, I was crying. I told him I wasn't going inside and just sat in the car, trying to process what had happened. I don't know if I'm overreacting, but I can't shake how wrong this feels. I keep replaying it in my head and just feel embarrassed and ashamed. The whole situation is so bizarre it doesn't even feel real. Commenter 1, yay, that's not dirty talk. You don't just tell someone you hate them for shits and giggles. I wouldn't let that go. In fact, it would make me rethink the whole relationship. Commenter 2, honestly, it sounds intentional to me. He damn well knew that was a painful thing for you at this moment and chose to do that anyways. If you'd like, have a sit-down talk with him about his actions. Tell him that you didn't like how he dismissed you when you brought it up, and that this isn't something you two can just move on from. That it's a shitty thing to do to try and make something you were genuinely hurting over dirty talk. That his comfort earlier in the day and his words feel like lies now, because he chose to say something he actively knew would hurt you in your most vulnerable moment. He chose to make sex with him feel unsafe, and if it were me, I'd tell him that you no longer feel comfortable having sex with him. I personally wouldn't want to have sex with someone who says they hate me or treats me this way, even if he doesn't hate you. His actions last night say he at least doesn't care about your emotions, mental health, feelings of safety, and he clearly doesn't respect you. He isn't entitled to your body, you choose to give it to him, and you can rescind that choice anytime based off his respect or lack thereof towards you. His dismissive actions when you voiced your concerns speaks volumes as to how he sees you, your emotions, and your needs. He sees you as dismissible, overlookable. This is a divorceable offense to me. Commenter 3. Your husband is fucking with your head. You state that you were tipsy but not all out drunk. So for him to say that twice and then claim that it was part of dirty talk is actually pretty disgusting on his part. He knew that it was a vulnerable point for you, especially considering you had brought it up earlier that day. I would not let this go. What kind of shit is he filled with? First, during an argument earlier that day, you share with him that it feels like he hates you, and he comforts you. And then hours later he says the words that he had earlier during the day reassured you was not the case. He even told you during the day that he never wanted you to feel that way. But what does he do hours later? He tells you twice that he hates you. That is a complete mindfuck. Don't feel embarrassed or ashamed because he's the one who should be embarrassed and ashamed. Please do not ever let him project his garbage onto you where you take it on. I'm really sorry that you experienced this. When you are ready, tell him. Actually demand to him that you both are to go for marriage counseling, and for him to go for individual counseling as well to figure out what the hell his problem is. If he's so angry at you still for whatever reason, and he's using this vulnerable point to get back at you, then that's a low blow on his part. If he has a tendency to treat you with contempt, that's pretty much the tail end of a relationship. But do not ever tolerate or put up with crap from your spouse again. If I were you, I'd actually rethink this relationship completely. Don't let him try to convince you ever again that you're overreacting on anything. Especially on this. This is huge. Do not let him gaslight you. Don't let him minimize you. And don't let him shame you or embarrass you. And definitely do not let him make you doubt yourself ever. Please do not let him convince you out of your true feelings. It's okay to talk to a trusted loved one about this. You shouldn't be alone in this. Please don't sleep in the guest room again. Send him out of the bedroom. Sending you lots of love and hugs. Commenter 4. It's only happened once in our 21+ years of marriage that I've been drunk when we've had sex. I kept on telling my wife how much I love her. The thought, I hate you, didn't even enter my mind. I think that's how people in a normal, healthy relationship would do things. OP. He was drunk, and as the Latin phrase goes, in vino veritas, in wine, there is truth. My guess is that is definitely how your husband feels on some level. Now you need to decide what you want to do about it. Stories number 7. AITA for not giving my stepdaughter a car like my son because she never liked me. I've been married to my wife Emily now for 5 years. She has a daughter Rose from her first marriage who's now 17. I lost my first wife 10 years ago while Emily got divorced 9 years ago. And her ex is still very involved in Rose's life as they share 50-50 custody. She spends a week at our house and a week at her father's place who still lives in the same village for her school. I got no problems with the ex, and he's genuinely a good guy and father to his daughter, and they really love each other. He and Emily just broke up because they fell out of love, I guess, and nobody cheated or anything. They're still on good terms. He's also married now and has 2 new twin kids, but Rose is still his daughter. I have a son with my late wife Michael, who's now 18. I love him to death, and he's a good young lad. He's starting law school next month, and you can't find a prouder father than me right now. As a gift, I got him a 2018 BMW 330i a while back because he's obsessed with BMWs. And ever since then, Rose has been pissed at me. She never liked me because she always blamed me for breaking up her parents. I never tried acting like her father because hers was right there, and I never forced her to like me or anything. But she's now demanding a car like her stepbrother. I told her I'm not her father, and she has made that very clear hundreds of times, and that I have no reason to buy her something like that. She should ask her father. She went and asked him, and he said money was tight right now, and that he would get her one once he has enough money, but she's throwing a fit. She says it's unfair Michael gets a new BMW while she has nothing. She keeps calling me an asshole, and that I never loved her, which isn't true. My wife's trying to talk sense into her, but she accuses her of choosing her new family over her, which hurt my wife because she loves her daughter. Am I wrong for not just buying her one? Comments, commenter 1, NTA. She has a dad and he's told her he will get one when he can. Or maybe her mom can help. Wasn't clear on if she was helping fund it. Commenter 2, Michael has one parent you. Emily has 2, neither of which are you. The car needs to come from Emily's parents, not you. She doesn't get to pick and choose when you get to become a parental figure. She is learning actions have consequences, and she's having a temper tantrum. Let her, like a toddler in the supermarket, walk over him and let her scream the fit out of her. Reply. The thing is that her dad already promised her one once the money was there. Commenter 3. NTA, if you give in to this, she's going to next ask you to pay for her college, pay for her wedding, while you're not invited to either of them. Commenter 4. I love how she normally wants nothing to do with you, but as soon as you bought your son a car, she demanded one too, and then accused you of never liking her when you said no. You are NTA, and as long as she has her dad, you are not obligated to gift her a car. Stories number 8. I'm shaming my caterer. And myself, trust your guts, please. So, I had my wedding in June 2025. Honestly, I loved planning it. It made me really decide to become an event planner. I had already been toying with it. But anyway, I had a backyard wedding. Most of everything went really well. Dress was awesome. Tent rental and chairs and tables. Even the dance floor, which wasn't used, was really nice. Dessert was ice cream. My fail, I wanted a food truck. My friends had done it for their wedding and it was awesome. Food was great with theirs. I studied trucks religiously. Tried out hundreds of dollars of food. Finally chose a truck after discussing with them. And my Emil and Sil were there too. The logistics and what they needed. Made the mistake of choosing them even after they asked me to find a contract BC. They didn't have one available. Whatever. Found the contract online. Adjusted it so it protected both of us. This fucking asshole. I told him, hey, you have a big menu? Let's adjust it to 4 items. He said, no, it's really fine. You're good, we're good. I've had 200-person events before. My wedding was only 100. He insisted, I've done this before and it was fine. Food was out in an hour. I should have asked for a reference. Fuck, don't make my mistake. If you have a vendor, limit food choices. He confirmed the menu with me. Signed every page of the contract to show that he understood and acknowledged blah blah blah. Day of, he was an hour late. He didn't have stuff on the menu. Took over 2.5 hours to get food out. Complained that the wait staff was slow. They weren't. They literally hovered at his truck. I ordered pizza just so people didn't have to wait for food. People left my wedding because it took so long for food to get out. He was supposed to supply up to 2 meals per person, but only was able to supply 1. I had to spend from 8:30 p.m. 11 p.m. in my house with him basically demanding a partial refund. We got about 35% back. By the time I left the house, all the guests had left. He said that in return for the refund, I, the bride, could not write a review, TLDR. Had food truck. Should have done more research. Got refunded due to piss poor service, comments, commenter 1. So ask your best man, maid of honor, to write a review about that crappy food truck company at the June wedding I went to. Commenter 2, in the US, a vendor can't prevent an honest review. Tell him to read the Consumer Review Fairness Act. Leave honest reviews wherever you can. He can do nothing in return. Commenter 3. As you mentioned, you are getting into wedding planning and event planning. Now you know before it affects a client that vendors need references and good reviews. You still should have contracts ready because they may not have done this and may not have a clue what is needed for this. I wish you luck in the career. Congratulations on the wedding, and you by all accounts handled this well. Except you should be posting this review with their name so locals can find it, and avoid the same issues. Commenter 4, what is stopping you naming and shaming? Stories number 9. My 19F boyfriend 23M is mad at me because I didn't tell him I'm quarter Thai. I've been dating this guy for 5 months and he hasn't met much of my family yet. My boyfriend had met my dad 100% British, but he never met my mum. She is half Thai, and she does look Thai. I don't look Thai. So as a teenager, when my friends would visit my house and see my mum clearly looked Thai and not fully British, they would be shocked but found it cool. I decided to temporarily stay with my boyfriend during this time. My mum came over to drop off some essentials, but we kept our distance. When my boyfriend met my mum, he was really taken back. She looked Thai. When my mum left, he asked why I never told him. And I told him honestly that I didn't feel like it's something I need to address. He's mad I never mentioned much about it, and I think he's using that as an excuse because he's racist. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but his family are all British, and it seems they don't know how to embrace other cultures' ethnicities. He just can't get past it, and even goes as far as trying to pick out my features that look Thai. I told him if this is going to be a problem because I didn't think it would be a big deal as it has become. He's brushing it off, but I feel like he's really gone off me now. I don't know. What do I do about this? TLDR, boyfriend found out my mum is half Thai, making me quarter Thai. He was mad I never said anything, and I think he doesn't like me anymore. I don't know if it's because I never told him my background of being Thai, or because he might be racist. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. If he's racist, then you gotta dip. Commenter 2. Yeah, he's totally racist. Commenter 3. A normal person would probably react like, oh cool, I didn't know that about you. Not this racist BS if you think it's safe. I think you should confront him about the way he's behaving. The way he's treating you in reaction to this discovery is ridiculous. And if you don't say anything, then that basically tells him it's okay to keep acting the way he is, which it is not. Again, only do this if it's safe. And if you even think he's worth the effort in the first place. Reply, yes. That's how my friends would react in school. They would be like, OMG, that's so cool, and genuinely take an interest. But his reaction has shocked me because I've not had anyone be so offended. Commenter 4. Most Anglo not racist guys would have thought it extremely hot that you were 1/4 Thai. Even some of the racist ones. He must be a white pride. Keep Britannia pure kind of asshole. Commenter 5. Racist, I mean. I'm a quarter of a bunch of European ethnicities, and nobody has one ever asked what exactly they are, or cared. And I have never thought to tell anyone that I'm a quarter Swedish, French, whatever. You'd only care if you thought a particularly ethnicity was somehow other. You'd only think it was something worth disclosing if you thought it was a big deal. Reply, exactly. People are so many ethnicities, and it's not like I was hiding it. I am proud to be Thai, but I didn't feel it was necessary to explain my whole family tree. I feel like if I was quarter French, it wouldn't have bothered him as much. Commenter 6. I agree that it wouldn't have. If you had an obviously French mom with an accent or something, he'd probably be like, how charming. You didn't tell me your mother was French. Interesting. Instead of getting mad at you for not telling him, the implication that you ought to have told him is that your heritage is somehow something that makes a difference. Reply, yes. He just saw my mom and noticed she clearly looked Thai, so he judged her appearance before anything else. Update. I don't think I'll be posting on this account again, but I still wanted to give you an update. Sorry, it's so long. I stayed up and read all your comments last night while my ex-boyfriend was sleeping, and it brought me to tears. His reaction felt wrong in my gut, and seeing you all agree and not accuse me of overreacting made it all feel real. Over the past few days since he met my mum, he has been dropping rude remarks and continuing to treat me unfair after his initial reaction. So it is clear it wasn't a heat of the moment thing, and he can't let it go. I'm sad I never saw this side of him sooner. Though I am glad I now know his true colors, and he never has the chance to meet the rest of my family. I have young cousins that are fully Thai, and if he ever met my extended family and showed this sort of behavior, I would feel so ashamed. My family don't deserve racism. I don't deserve it either. So I told him that the way he talks about my family's ethnicity is hurtful. It was hard because he was not being blatantly racist, but he was clearly bothered by my race despite denying it. Thankfully, I have isolated myself for many weeks. And so have my parents. I was scared I wouldn't be able to go back home, but I feel like it is very necessary under these circumstances. I don't want to live in a household with someone who makes me feel inferior because my family and I are Thai, so you will be glad to know I broke up with him. Surprisingly, he took it well. Maybe because, as I thought from the start, he lost his attraction to me or was uncomfortable with my heritage. He appeared like a kind guy for months, so seeing this from him has left me feeling distraught. I feel stupid that I let him into my life and lived in his house these last few weeks. Though being in quarantine had unnaturally progressed our relationship, as someone in the comments mentioned. I will learn from my mistakes and grow from this. I don't think he will ever change. And despite me telling him his behavior is wrong and it's racist, I don't think he realizes it himself. That's it. Thank you for everyone who gave me advice from the very start. Sometimes it's hard to see things clear, and you need encouragement from others to do the right thing for yourself and for your loved ones. I was pretty isolated from everyone but him, so it was nice to have people on Reddit help me come to terms with all this. You made me feel less alone and made me realize I do have value. I shouldn't be treated like I'm anything less, and I should be surrounded by people who love me for who I am. I am proud to be Thai, edit 1. Some people were saying, did he know you were Thai at all? Or if I was hiding it from him, and why I assumed him being upset was racist. So I'm going to sum that all up for you. I mentioned I was Thai briefly before, but never mentioned I was specifically quarter Thai, and I don't think he understood how much Thai was in my family, and it didn't hit him until he actually saw my mom's psychical appearance. He judged her appearance immediately before anything else. He wasn't pleasantly surprised like most people are, and he was offended. I was not hiding it from him at all. I am used to my mom being Thai, and it's so normal to me because I've grown up with a Thai family. I don't think I should have to warn people I am Thai, if that makes sense. I'm just used to my race, and I didn't think it would affect others so bad. He was upset. Not because he felt like he was left in the dark about my culture, or because I never told him my whole family background. He was upset, angry because ignorantly he expected my mum to look like me. He didn't expect to see my mum, who is half Thai. The reason I feel he was being racist is because he was almost disgusted when he saw my mum's psychical appearance. And after he wasn't interested in the culture or anything and was more bothered about mine and my family's appearance. Like, oh, your eyes actually do look Thai. But he said it like it was a bad thing. Days after, he continued to say remarks that were mean and made me feel bad about myself. I mentioned this in the comments on my previous post. I hope that sums up everything for you, even though I shouldn't have to explain myself. I won't be answering questions accusing me of hiding my culture or anything like that in the comments, so here's your answer. Final comments. Commenter 1, proud Thai right here, that's proud of you. Good for you. You deserve someone who's going to treat you with respect. As for him, he probably won't be getting over his discomfort anytime soon. So good riddance, and the best is yet to come. Reply, thank you so much, I feel better already. Commenter 2. My comment is in regards to the edit. Fuck that. You don't have to out yourself about your race or anything. Don't apologize for it. It's 2020. You don't need to explain where your family comes from. That's racist in itself. Expecting you to scream, I'm part Thai on first introduction? What the hell? No one screams, I'm white on first introduction. Please don't apologize for that or ever allow anyone to make you apologize for that. Who you and your family are is nothing to apologize for. Reply, this is very reassuring, thank you. I just feel like I've had enough, and having strangers telling me, you must be hiding your culture, in the comments, is really discouraging after I've been so vulnerable on here. Commenter 3, blessing in disguise. Never settle for a racist. Stories number 10. My husband didn't believe me until I showed him what I found hidden in our baby's room when I had my daughter. I thought the hardest part of motherhood would be sleepless nights, or figuring out why a tiny human could cry for 3 hours straight over a blanket being the wrong texture. Turns out the hardest part was realizing I didn't feel safe in my own home. I'm 28, my husband Mark is 31. We've been together almost 8 years, married for 3. We live in a 2-bedroom rental in Ohio that we've spent years turning into our dream little starter home. I work from home, and Mark works maintenance for a local college. Our daughter, Lily, is 6 months old and the love of our lives. When she was born, I set up a small nursing corner in her nursery. Rocking chair, side table, lamp, and a little white noise machine that Mark bought. It faced the window, and I'd sit there for hours feeding or just holding her. It was my calm space. A few weeks ago, I noticed something weird. Every time I walked into Lily's room, the white noise machine light blinked once. I'd never seen it do that before. At first I brushed it off. Mark's good with tech. He might have updated the firmware or something. But the blinking started happening at random times, even when the machine was unplugged. That's when I felt something deep in my stomach twist. One afternoon, Lily was napping, and I was organizing her dresser when I realized the blinking wasn't coming from the machine at all. It was coming from the air vent above the rocking chair. I grabbed a step stool, climbed up, and looked inside. What I saw made my whole body go cold. There was a tiny black lens, tucked just inside the vent slats, small enough to miss unless you were looking right at it. My first thought was, no way, maybe it was some kind of sensor? But my gut knew better. I took my phone, snapped a photo, and texted it to Mark, me. Hey, can you explain this? Mark, what am I looking at? Me, that's inside Lily's vent, he called immediately, voice low and nervous. Are you sure? Maybe it's part of the apartment's HVAC? I could hear the fear under his words. He came home early, and when he climbed up to check, his face drained of color. He didn't say anything, just went to the kitchen, grabbed a screwdriver, and carefully pulled the thing out. It was a small, round camera, one of those cheap Wi-Fi ones you can buy online for $40. I felt like I was going to throw up. Someone had installed that in our daughter's room. Where I fed her, where she slept, Mark tried to stay calm, but I could see his hands shaking. He checked every vent, smoke detector, outlet, and light fixture in the apartment. By the time he was done, he found two more, one in our living room near the TV, another in the hallway pointing toward our bedroom. We called the police immediately. They sent an officer who took photos and the devices for evidence. He said they'd seen cases like this before, sometimes landlords, sometimes previous tenants who'd installed them and never removed them, and sometimes, worse, that night I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch holding Lily, jumping at every sound. I kept thinking about how many times I'd changed clothes, or fed her, or just existed in that house, unaware that someone could have been watching. The next day, we packed what we could and went to stay at Mark's sister's house. She was horrified, and immediately helped us file a report with the property management company. They swore they'd never seen anything like that, and promised to cooperate with police. Over the next week, I learned things I wish I hadn't. The police traced the cameras to a Wi-Fi network that didn't belong to us. It was connected to a nearby apartment, a guy who'd moved out about 2 months before we moved in. The detective said the cameras were likely left behind, but had automatically reconnected when our internet router picked up the same signal provider. So yes, technically, it might have been accidental, but that didn't make me feel better. Because someone still put them there, we decided to break our lease and move. The landlord agreed, probably to avoid legal trouble. I've since bought a small camera detector and motion sensor for our new place. Every room, every outlet, I checked them monthly. Mark struggled with guilt. He kept saying, I should have noticed something sooner. But honestly, how could he have known? Who looks for hidden cameras in their baby's room? The thing that sticks with me most is how my safe place, the rocking chair where I'd whisper lullabies to my daughter, now feels tainted. I donated it before we moved. I couldn't bear to bring it with us. We're doing better now. Lily's crawling, laughing, babbling. Our new house feels bright and safe, but every time I see a blinking light or an odd shadow in a vent, my heart still skips. You never really get over that kind of violation. You just learn to live past it. It's been a few months since everything happened, and I finally feel calm enough to write an update. I didn't realize how much that first post would spread, or how many people would message me with support, advice, and similar stories. Reading those messages made me realize how many others have gone through something just as violating. The investigation took longer than I expected. The police took the cameras for forensics, and they told us not to expect quick answers. They needed to determine when the devices had been active and whether any footage existed. For weeks, that uncertainty hung over me like a storm cloud. Every time my phone pinged, I half expected it to be the detective calling with terrible news. Mark and I stayed at his sister's house during that whole period. She has 2 kids and a spare room, and she made it feel like home. I didn't realize how much I'd missed sleeping without feeling like someone could be watching us. About a month later, we finally got an update from the detective. The cameras had been connected at some point, but not recently. The footage stored on them was encrypted, and most of it was corrupted because they'd been disconnected for months before we moved in. Still, the police were able to confirm the equipment had been purchased online by a man who used to live in the apartment before us. He'd been evicted for non-payment, moved out of state, and had a minor record for trespassing. So technically, it wasn't our landlord. It wasn't anyone we knew. It was someone who had lived there before, who left those devices behind. The detective said it was impossible to know whether he ever used them for anything malicious. But obviously the placement spoke for itself. That should have made me feel relieved. It didn't. Knowing who put them there didn't erase the memory of finding them. The landlord offered to pay for 3 months of rent at our new place and signed a legal agreement to release us from the lease. They also replaced all vents, smoke detectors, and outlets in the old unit and installed an external security system in the building. Apparently, another tenant had complained a year earlier about odd wiring and management ignored it. That part made me angry. Therapy helped more than anything. Mark and I started seeing a counselor who specializes in trauma recovery. She helped us talk about things I didn't even know I'd buried. The guilt, the fear, the anger. I learned that what happened wasn't just about privacy. It was about control, and how quickly it can be stolen from you. Mark blamed himself for a long time. He kept saying, "You trusted me to keep you safe," and I didn't. It broke my heart because none of this was his fault. He's the reason we caught it, the reason we're safe now. I've also learned that healing isn't linear. For weeks, every noise in our new house made me jump. I bought a small camera detector and ran it through every room, even the kitchen. It took time, but now I don't do it out of fear. I do it out of habit, and it gives me peace of mind. Lily's getting bigger now. She's 8 months old, crawling everywhere, babbling like she has something very important to say. The other day I caught her laughing at her own reflection, and for the first time in a long while, I felt pure, uncomplicated joy. The detective called one last time a few weeks ago to close the case. They couldn't charge the man since there wasn't proof of intent or footage, but they did put his name into a database for suspected illegal surveillance. Apparently, that's enough to keep him on a watch list if anything like this happens again. I won't pretend that gave me full closure, but it gave me something. Knowing his name, knowing the police took it seriously, helped me move forward. We decided to buy our own house this time. It's small but sunny, with a big fenced yard and a little room I turned into a nursery reading nook. The first night we slept there, I didn't hear a single hum of a hidden device or see any strange lights. Just Lily snoring softly on the baby monitor, and Mark's arm around me. Sometimes people comment or message asking if I've forgiven whoever did it. I don't think forgiveness applies here. You can't forgive a stranger who robbed you of safety. What I can do is let go of the power that fear had over me. If anyone reading this has gone through something similar, whether it was a hidden camera, a stalking situation, or anything that shattered your sense of security, please trust your instincts. Don't brush off the weird feelings. They exist for a reason. The hardest part of moving forward isn't leaving the place behind. It's learning to believe you deserve to feel safe again. And I finally do. Stories number 11. AITA for ending my marriage permanently after learning my husband was sleeping with 2 other women and got one of them pregnant while we were separated and he was supposed to be fighting for me. I, 29F, have been married to Kyle, 29M, for 8 years, and we have 2 children together. We separated 5 months ago because he was completely checked out and was displaying behaviors of self-sabotage, including, but not limited to, getting into big trouble at work, which resulted in him getting fired and then immediately getting a new job where he was also put on notice. He was so distant and cold with me. He wasn't involved with the kids anymore either. I tried communicating with him about what it was doing to me, how our marriage was on the line, and that I couldn't stand by him treating me like this. But none of it worked. So I asked for a separation, which appeared to wake him up, and he begged me to let him try. I told him we would separate for 6 months, and I wanted him to get individual therapy in that time. Then we could go to couples therapy after he'd completed 6 months of therapy. He swore to me that he would. He got himself in with a therapist within a month and kept swearing to me that he would work his ass off for us to work. He got a new job and told me all about it, or so I thought. I thought he was communicating better with me. And last month we started seeing a couples therapist. 2 weeks ago, though, I found out he was sleeping with 2 women from his new job, and one of them is pregnant. As soon as we started therapy together, he ended it with them, and the pregnant co-worker decided to find my socials and tell me about it herself. She had enough proof for me to realize she was telling the truth, and it devastated me. Kyle told me he was still self-sabotaging when he did it because he didn't think I'd actually take him back. He swore to me that he would do whatever it took to work through this and regain my trust. But him having a child with someone else is already too far for me. I have no desire to be a stepmother to his child born through what feels emotionally like an affair, considering he was reaching out every day and telling me he was fighting for us. But even the fact he slept with anyone else in that time is hard for me. So I told him in a therapy session that I was done. and I wanted to proceed with a divorce. Kyle begged me to reconsider. He begged for more time to prove himself. The therapist suggested we try therapy for another month or two before I decide, but I'm done. It kills me that our kids will grow up with divorced parents. But if we stay together, I will be miserable, and I will resent an innocent child. There's going to be regular drama because of the woman Kyle got pregnant, and how unhappy she is. And I know I would not set a good example for either of our kids by staying. But I also feel bad that I decided to be done like this because of my kids, and because divorce can be hard for kids, and they struggled with the separation as it is. I also feel as though I'm not really listening to the therapist, which might not be good. I just can't find it in me to fight for us anymore. Comments, Commenter 1 reply, NTA, been there done that. Actions speak louder than words. Reply, they sure as hell do. What kills me is I believed him, and was so happy he was supposedly fighting for us. And it all ended as soon as I found out what he was doing while making all those promises. Commenter 1 reply, my ex did the same thing to me except we didn't have kids, and he didn't get anyone pregnant. It's like, how are you working on repairing us while you are entertaining other women? His trash reply, I'm so sorry. When you believe them and then find out they were keeping things like this from you, it's so hard not to be wrecked by it. I feel like a fool for believing him. When a partner does this, it's just proof of actions being more important than words. Commenter 1 reply, 100%, just know this was not your fault. Commenter 2 NTA, you did your best, even going to therapy after finding out about your husband not only cheating on you but getting another woman pregnant. Your husband has been lying to you. He didn't even tell you about the baby as it was his AP that contacted you. Your husband is a major AH. Your therapist is an idiot asking you to continue with the therapy. Probably doesn't want to lose a paying client. If you get therapy for yourself to help you get through the divorce, please go to someone else. You're doing the right thing getting a divorce. He keeps telling you he'll do whatever you want to save the marriage. Instead, he's done everything to destroy it. You deserve better. Don't let him try to make you feel bad or guilty for getting a divorce, especially since he's the one who lied and cheated. You did nothing wrong. This is all his fault. Move forward with your life and find happiness for yourself, which will make you a better mother than you already are. Reply, I feel like such a fool for believing him. Because I actually did. I wanted this to work. For him to show me he was willing to work through whatever issues he had. Instead, he found the first 2 women he could. Commenter 3. You not wanting to be a stepmother and having to deal with this other woman for the rest of your life is enough to warrant a divorce. I feel sad your kids now have to deal with having a half-sibling when their dad is already checked out of fatherhood. Commenter 4 on NTA. His chance was your separation, but instead he got another woman pregnant. I wonder who else he's cheated with. Stories number 12. AITA for refusing to help my boyfriend's dying mother while planning a trip to Europe. I 25F live with my boyfriend Liam, 24M, about a month ago. His mom Tanya began claiming she's dying of cancer, but no diagnosis has been confirmed. Every hospital visit ends with her being sent home. A nurse even told Liam she might be faking. It started when she stayed one night at our 1-bedroom apartment that turned into a week of chaos. She refused AC and fans said they hurt her skin but blow-dried her hair daily. The apartment smelled awful. Everything had to be dark and silent, and she constantly demanded help. She even stormed into our bedroom at 3 a.m., asking Liam for massages. We sleep naked. So that was awkward. She criticized our Buddhist souvenirs, insisted we hang a cross I did, and complained non-stop. She suggested we move in with her, an hour from our jobs or school. I'm a full-time student with 2 jobs and a 4.0 GPA, and I was falling behind. Liam, who works full-time, switched to remote work. His boss hated this to care for Tanya. Her health updates were always shifting. MRI, canceled surgery, then chemo postponed due to infection, then E. coli, always a new reason, no clear diagnosis or paperwork. When her husband David, who funds her lifestyle, was away, she made us go to her house to get her jewelry because she thinks he'll steal it when she dies. He's an alcoholic, according to her. We were supposed to take her to the ER right after, but we ended up staying 16 hours doing chores. I folded 420 clothing items, cleaned the whole house, and felt like her unpaid maid. Not a single please or thank you. She was stalling to go to the ER, and when we finally got there at 5 a.m., she said she'd check herself in and sent us home. 3 hours later, she called again, sobbing for help. She had been rejected by the ER. I suspect she faked it. Liam and I have both been skipping meals, losing sleep, and falling behind at work to help her. He once said he's waiting for her to pass away so we can move to Europe. He's been forced to manage her divorce, lawyer meetings, and funeral prep. Meanwhile, David, who's paying the hospital bills and had been kept in the dark about all this, sent Liam aggressive texts like, "I call bullshit," and "don't show up at my house no more." Then later apologized. Tanya called again begging for help. But this time she wanted me because David is jealous of Liam. I had clearly told Liam I needed that weekend to study for final exams, and going to that house alone seemed sketchy. Now, I'm planning a 2-3 week Europe trip to see my mom, whom I haven't seen in over a year. Liam says he supports it, but called it a little selfish. He's asked, "If I were dying, would you quit your job to be with me? And if it were your mom, would you help her?" I felt pressured to say yes, but truth is, my family wouldn't lie to me or use me like this. I love Liam and want to be there for him, but I don't trust his mom, and this is starting to affect our relationship. AITA for refusing to help Tanya and going home to Europe? Sum of comments. Commenter. NTA. I know you love your boyfriend, but you need to ask yourself if you're willing to give up your own life for him and his mom, because it's never going to stop. It could stop if he chooses to set boundaries, but it doesn't sound like he'll do that. Reply, thank you. He's assured me multiple times that I'm his priority. If I told him to stay with me instead of going to the hospital, he would. And the only times I'll ever ask him to stay is when I can tell his own health is suffering from it. He's also ready to move to Europe with me. It's just that he's getting guilt-tripped by his mother. Every time he tries to leave the hospital, she falls to her knees and says stuff like, "God will bless you more if you stay. This is our last meal together." Or, "I have no one. I am all alone." And that's what gets to him. Recently, he asked me to come to the hospital with him to give him a reason to leave early. When we tried to explain to her that we have an appointment elsewhere, she cut us off and said, "Just go then." She didn't care for an explanation. When Liam said, "Bye Mom, I love you," she just snapped back. Actions speak louder than words. Don't call me anymore. But then, 2 hours later, she calls him and begs for him to come back. I don't get it. Commenter. NTA. Does Liam see that she's faking it, or does he genuinely believe her? Not that it really makes a difference. Reply. So I don't think he sees it. I've brought up once that what she's doing is manipulation, and he said that's a bit harsh. I then asked him if he thinks he's ever been manipulated by his mom, and he said, "Oh, definitely. She's the biggest manipulator I know. But this is different, because she's actually sick, so she just really needs me to be with her." So, I think he's a bit in denial, unless I'm the crazy one and she really is sick. I'd owe the world an apology. Commenter. NTA. I think you need to have a serious sit-down with Liam and suggest his mom get therapy. No one has that many issues and gets rejected from an ER, or has important procedures cancelled and not rescheduled for as soon as possible. She using this as manipulation. Your lives will be permanently on hold until this is dealt with, or contact is cut. Reply. That's what I've been worried about since day one. Ever since we invited her to stay one night, I had a feeling it was going to be months until this gets settled. I like your advice. However, my boyfriend is strictly against therapy. Have kindly suggested it to him in the past with his own issues, but he refuses to even consider it. Doubt he'll suggest it to his mom, especially since he doesn't think she's manipulating us. I will try, though. Worst thing that can happen is that he says no. Thank you. More on therapy. Reply. He was actually a psychology major with a health professions minor, which is why he understands psychology and doesn't see a point in therapy. I've tried therapy and I'll say it wasn't super helpful. Did the free version on campus, but it also wasn't so horrible that I'd tell people it's useless. I think it helped in some ways, and I'm sure that it's even better off campus. Commenter. NTA. Why is his family more important than yours? I would tell him that he should move her to assisted living or an apartment and hire help. Reply. We've tried getting her assisted living and hired help, but somehow they all refuse to take the gig. Something's always preventing her from getting help, and I can't tell if it's true, or if she's the one denying help. Also, I do think that his family should be as important as mine. We see our partnership as a family, meaning his family is, whether I like it or not, my family, so I do think if she was on her deathbed, I shouldn't just go on vacation in Europe. I'm only considering it because I don't believe she's that sick, and if she is, then she should get help and not exploit my boyfriend. It's only going to get worse and she will ruin everything. Reply. I see your point, and I want to agree so badly. I'm just so confused because she was always so supportive of us. She'd say, "I love you" to me, buy me clothes and other gifts, give me her old car when mine broke down, and always say she loves our pictures and wants us to go travel the world. Granted, she has always been obsessed with her son, and clearly jealous, but in a modest way. She'd never act on it other than guilt tripping him into spending some time with her. Never anything as extreme as this. So, I don't understand why she would go to such lengths if she really is faking some or even all of it. Part of me just doesn't want to believe it. But I really do feel like she's using her sickness in every way to get attention. And that's not okay to me, especially when Liam is getting mentally and physically exhausted and risking his job to help her. Commenter: has anyone actually seen a doctor's report of cancer? Reply: no idea. I've asked my boyfriend if it's certain that she has cancer and he said yes. And he's apparently also heard doctors talking about it looking bleak. But I haven't seen anything official and don't know if he has either, or if it's all just Tanya's story. I also don't get why there aren't any clear next steps. Seems like every day is unknown. She might call us to her house. She might be back in the ER. She might not talk to us at all. Sometimes Liam's dad calls because she's begging him for help, even though David is highly jealous of that man. I really just want to stay out of it. But I know my boyfriend is suffering and has a hard time saying no to her. Have there been any noticeable physical changes? Reply: she's lost a lot of weight and gotten very fatigued. She's very slow, can't do simple tasks on her own, and doesn't talk much unless it's call Liam over or to keep him from leaving. If she doesn't have cancer, then she's starving herself and using the fatigue to get attention. She does look and act sick, but her other behavior and the secrecy surrounding it all just makes no sense to me. I usually see the best in people, but in this case I have this deep gut feeling that she's lying to us. If not about the diagnosis, then about something else. I just don't understand why. Commenter: NTA, have you guys talked to David? She is trying to convince you that he is not trustworthy, which means she is probably telling you and David different stories. Reply: David is an odd character in all this. I actually always sided with him, thinking he's probably getting antagonized by her. But then he started threatening Liam over text, saying, "When you grow some nuts, don't come to my house no more." He said it because everyone seemed to know about Tanya's situation, but him, which I get, it's upsetting for the husband, but still no need to attack the son. I lost respect for him at that point, but I have considered reaching out to him to hear his story. I 100% agree with you that David and Liam are getting two different stories from Tanya. More on their divorce process. She hasn't gotten divorced because her husband pays the medical bills this month. She had Liam file for her divorce and abuse without the husband's knowledge. Which makes no sense to me because she needs his money and tries to please him at home, but also doesn't want him to help her. That's what I'm being told, and when I start asking too many questions, my BF just shrugs and says he has no clue either what's up with them. He's pretty annoyed by this, but also concerned for his mom, understandably. OOP has an exchange with an oncology nurse where she lays out the timeline here. Mini updates and comments. So I'm starting to gather more info and will post an update at some point. But it's possible that she didn't get rejected, but rather they gave her pain meds and sent her home. I'm finding out that she got her MRI and cancer diagnosis done at one hospital, and then went to another one for her E. coli. The second hospital gave her antibiotics and then discharged her. And now we are all waiting for a call from the first hospital to reschedule chemo. But they haven't called her or Liam yet. It's been about a week. We also can't call them because Liam doesn't know which hospital it was, and his mom is not capable of telling him. When she calls him, she just cries out in pain and begs for help, and says she can't read the labels of her meds. Liam tries to help remotely, but she wants him there and hangs up when he refuses. The issue, apparently, is that the first hospital where she got her cancer diagnosis and scans is refusing to take her because they don't think it's serious. Even though she says she's in major pain and has been diagnosed with enlarged lymph nodes. Still gathering info. We'll update soon. OP also comments on this day more about boyfriend's aversion to therapy. Yes. So I asked him last night because I said with everything going on, it really might be a good idea to at least try therapy. He said no, and I asked him to explain why not. He said therapists don't work. I asked how he'd know if he's never been. He said his friends have. Then I told him that I have been to therapy, and it has helped a little. He started challenging it and asked how or why it helped. And I told him that the doctor gave some good advice here and there. And that just by talking to a neutral party helped me understand my situation. Liam then said something along the lines of, "Why would I pay a guy $25 an hour if I can talk to you? Isn't that what a partner is for?" I told him I might not have the professional experience and resources to help him. He said he doesn't need resources. He just needs me to listen and be there. And then, since we were talking about me leaving for Europe, he started saying that maybe I should go to therapy because my girlfriend is leaving. I thought that was unfair to say because I'd assured him that I'd still be here for him and listen even if I'm overseas for a few weeks, but he simply said no. I felt inclined to bring up his manipulation for the first time, and a whole new conversation fight started after that. No need to get into that too in this comment, TLDR. He doesn't want therapy because he believes that's what a partner is for. More on their argument. I haven't said this in any other comment yet because I'll probably post an update with what went down last night. But when we talked about me leaving again because I said I'll book flights on Monday, he told me that while I'm in Europe I should ask my mom what she would do if she was Liam. Would she help her mom or not? I asked him why he needs my mom's input now, and he said, because she's a good person, not sure what to make of that. But then he asked a bunch of what-if questions. If I have an accident, would you come back? Like if I end up in a wheelchair? I said yes, of course. If my mom dies while you're gone, are you gonna come back? I said yes, absolutely, no question. What if her last words are, where is OP? I stopped right there. Why would his mom's last words be asking for his girlfriend? I said, I doubt that's what she'll say. He then said, during her phone call this morning, those were her last words though, I said. No, I heard what her last words were. Don't ever call me again. He said I take things too literal, and that she kept asking where I am when she called him. But I was asleep for that part. It was 5 a.m. when she called. And yes, she did ask where I am, but only because she wanted me to come over if his son refused. I am painting both of them as bad people. There is more to Liam's emotional state that explains why he'd say the things he does. But it still doesn't excuse that he is definitely guilt-tripping and manipulating me. And I had a serious talk with him yesterday. Might update the Reddit post one of these days, mini update in comments. I wish I could give you a hug through the screen. Something about your message felt so comforting. Even though it's overall a warning that reaffirms my fears and concerns. Thank you so much for taking the time to write all that. I really appreciate your input, and the way in which you gave it. I have decided to go on my trip, and will book the flights tomorrow after talking to my boss. I will have to be transparent with him about all this, as I do not like lying to anyone. In any situation, unless absolutely necessary, I'm sure he'll be okay with me working remotely, or even taking off for a few weeks. It's just a work-study on campus after all. And he's a nice guy. I will be sure to secure all my valuables, like visa documents, credit cards, and sentimental objects such as journals. We'll leave them with a friend that Liam doesn't know at all. I will also change passwords for certain accounts. I've been thinking about all these things you've advised for the past couple of days, as my trust has broken more and more. It's not that I expect the worst, but I do want to be cautious, especially since Liam's behavior has been a little unpredictable lately. Also, to your last point about contraception, this might be TMI. I actually thought about that yesterday when we had intercourse. I never worried about that before, that he could possibly, purposefully tinker with our protection. But in that moment, I got uncomfortable. I'm usually 100% comfortable doing it with him, but I felt a lack of trust that I hadn't before, and I got a bit sad about that. So, just trying to say I'll be careful there too. I'm certainly not ready, nor do I want to have kids with him right now. Not before we're both secure in life, and physically and mentally healthy. I, too, hope that you're wrong. But can't at all blame you for making the deductions you have. I see it too, in some ways, whether I want to or not, and we'll have to find a way to deal with this after I'm back from Europe. Thank you again for your long message, and for showing concern and care towards someone online whom you don't personally know. You have a kind heart. Mini update and comments. I'm in the process of getting the update approved by Reddit. There are a lot of rules that prevent me from sharing crucial details, but I'll do what I can to update you guys with as much detail as permitted. Update post. I did take your guys' advice, and went to Europe to see my family for 3 weeks. Liam called me incredibly selfish, finding countless reasons for me to stay. I stood my ground and had a serious talk with him about feeling manipulated and guilt-tripped. That escalated into a meltdown. Threats like, I'll book your ticket and I can and will. I can break up if I want to. Then driving off and breaking down sobbing like never before, he said he doesn't mean to manipulate me. That it hurts to hear me say, I feel manipulated when all he's asking is for me to be there for him. I don't excuse his behavior, but if my mom was sick, I'd want his comfort too. So I understood his need for support. He calmed, apologized, and has been affectionate since. He ended up supporting my decision to leave, and said how happy he was for me while I was with my family. I felt great over there, cherishing every moment. Didn't miss America at all. Liam seemed okay while I was gone and picked me up from the airport with a welcome home cake, which was sweet. We had a talk about the whole mom situation, and he kindly asked me to be more supportive of coming to the hospital with him. I agreed. Tanya was very dependent on Liam for weeks, calling him over day and night, guilt-tripping him non-stop. Eventually, he refused to help her anymore. She cut ties briefly, but they reconnected. His involvement has gone way down since then. Tanya's sister flew in from Cali to help out, but couldn't take her crazy demands. So she left. Niece came too, but left 3 days later. Tanya had surgery and started chemo, is getting thinner and losing her hair. She has another surgery scheduled for mid-October to get a mass removed. And a nurse at the hospital did say to Liam while I was there to witness it, "I'm glad you're visiting your mom. Cancer can be so tough." I don't think Tanya is faking anymore. Yada for being unsupportive despite believing Tanya. I haven't been involved at all since returning from Europe. I'm better at standing my ground now and defending myself when I feel manipulated by them. I learned how to say no, may not have mastered it yet, but I'm prioritizing my grades and my family over his mom's odd demands, while also balancing quality time with my BF. I show sympathy for his mom and text her here and there. But I agree with the Reddit comments that it's not my job to treat or nurse her, or spend my weekends doing her chores. Other updates: Tanya didn't get divorced. She needs David to pay her medical bills, but tells people he's a rude alcoholic who's waiting for her to die. Liam quit his job. It was too much on top of his mom. His mood is way better. He's healing mentally, and treating me better too. I support his unemployment for now. BC, he's working diligently on projects, and has enough savings for his part of rent. Can't fit more. Hope it brings some clarity. Some of comments commenter: good for you for going to see your family and setting boundaries, but Liam quit his job? Are you financially supporting him now? I think you should not put yourself at financial risk for this relationship. If you can easily afford to live and finish school, great. If this situation is setting you back, you should get out. People will call it selfish, but this is a toxic family and I'm worried that your boyfriend's first instinct was to drag and manipulate you, and now he's not working. Reply: thank you for your kind words. To answer your question, he's using his savings to pay for his portions. I haven't paid for any of his things since he's quit. He's also still covering most of the groceries. So financially nothing has changed as of now. I'm able to support myself with my work-study jobs. I just wouldn't be able to carry him fully if he were to stop paying his parts. So as long as his savings hold up, we're good. And we both know that, and have agreed on that. If I am able to find a full-time job after graduation, I will cover a bit more of the rent share. Which is fair because he's been paying a little more for rent these past 2 years since he has had a full-time job, and I didn't. Commenter: and what happens when his savings run out? Cancer treatment can take years, and even if she gets in remission, she still will need care time to get better. Are you prepared for years of this? Reply: if his savings run out, he'll be forced to work whether he wants to or not. As a US citizen, he, unlike me, is at least able to work anywhere, even if it's just a part-time gig. I'm not allowed to work off campus, and can only work up to 20 hours a week. So if he runs out of money, he'll have to work. Even if I wanted to cover his share, I can't. I just don't make enough money with my campus jobs. I also have emergency funds that I keep to myself in case I ever need to suddenly pay for a flight home, or unexpected hospital bills, etc. that he doesn't have access to. Stories number 13. AITA for accusing our dad of not loving us. My 26M mom was amazing. Sweet yet firm, a total rock star. My dad, on the other hand, treated us like burdens. He made constant comments every year on our birthdays saying, "Only this many more years until you're 18 and you're out of my house." He always said it in a joking way, but even from a young age, my brothers and I knew he was not joking. Unfortunately, our mom died when we were teens. The comments ramped up at that point. Sure enough, my oldest brother turned 18. He was gifted a 2-week eviction notice. As he's a few years older than my other brother and I, we were able to prepare a little more so we weren't totally blindsided at 18. We had always figured we'd have to move out after graduation, but hadn't foreseen he truly meant right after we turned 18. Even though all of us have fall or winter birthdays, so we were still in high school for several months after. We just accepted it as reality. I'm the youngest. And when I turned 17, my dad got a calendar and began marking down the days until I turned 18. It was a daily countdown where he'd mark the days off. My brothers and I didn't talk to our dad for a while after moving out. But eventually, my eldest brother's wife had a baby and my dad started showing up again. He is arguably a better grandfather than he ever was a dad, so when I became a dad 5 years ago, I allowed him around my child, though, I admit, becoming a dad myself made me realize how wrong my dad was. I love my little girl so much. Sure, fatherhood is not easy, but I am certainly not counting down the days until she's 18. If she wants, she could live with me forever. I find myself actually sad at how fast the time is going. I entered fatherhood unplanned and actually do 90% of it on my own, as her mom is barely around. Long story. But I still wouldn't change a thing. Last month, my daughter started kindergarten. She is very independent and just walked on in, no issues. I held it together but admit I broke down crying when I got back to my car because she's just growing up so damn fast. I work at my eldest brother's restaurant and showed up for my shift a hot mess. He was comforting me as he's been there with his own kids. Our dad stopped by for breakfast and asked what was wrong. He laughed when we explained and said I was too damn soft. I said it must be foreign to him to see what a loving father is actually like. This pissed our dad off and he started arguing with me, saying it was disgusting I accused him of not loving us. He kept saying he was from a different time. While my eldest brother doesn't take issue with what I said, my second eldest brother told me I was wrong to accuse him of not loving us, and said it puts words in his mouth. He also said it was just starting shit as my dad has gotten better and has been trying. It's been a month since the incident and my dad refuses to see my daughter since I said this and she misses her grandpa. It's left me wondering if I'm the asshole. Comments Commenter 1 NTA. Leopards don't change their spots by cutting off your daughter. That man just proved your point. Commenter 2 NTA, and the fact that he is punishing your daughter because of this shows that he has not changed. He just didn't like to hear the criticism and is lashing out like a child. He hid his whole nature to be a good grandfather. But apparently he couldn't suppress his true self for too long. If he comes back around, remember that if he was willing to hurt your daughter once, he will a second time. Commenter 3 NTA. I'm so sick of people blaming being from a different time. Kick your motherless child out at 18? Cool, maybe he's better now. But he can't undo kicking his children out of their home, once they're legally no longer his burden. Commenter 4 NTA. So your dad is mad at you because he thinks he is a loving person, and is proving it by abandoning his relationship with your daughter, his granddaughter? No. If this happened to me, this would be the first and last time I allowed this emotionally abusive person to harm my daughter. You have not needed him since you were 18. Your daughter does not need him either. Stories number 14. I regret wasting all of my 20s with someone twice my age. This is a rough one for me. I started volunteering at the place where my current BF works. We started dating in my early 20s, and he's around twice my age now. It was completely causal the way we got together, and neither of us had ever dated outside of our age before. He tried to push me away at first because of the age difference, thinking that he would be holding me back. But I told him I wanted to at least see where it went, because if it didn't work out, then at least I knew. I wouldn't have to always wonder what if. Fast forward 8 years, still together but not married. Talked about it for years, and I would have said yes 4 years ago. I've been on him hard about it the last 2 years, stating that I kind of feel like I'm waiting for the rest of my life to start. I wanted kids, he has none. And I'm about to start my second career, which will pay me extremely well. He has his own business, and also does very well. He supposedly is having a ring made. But it hasn't made it to my finger yet. I do believe him because he spoke to my best friend about it, but he's had all this time with nothing to show for it. He's also randomly begun having a lot of health issues since last year, which has put a huge damper on our relationship. I work in the medical field, so I'm always trying to guide him on what to do and not do. When to see a doc, eat, sleep, etc. But he doesn't listen and doesn't take care of himself, so a lot of his issues have been self-inflicted. I do have a hard time with sympathy for things that are in your control that you willingly choose to ignore. I went through a 2-year struggle where I was in and out of the hospital a lot, and he was always there for me and extremely supportive. He's the perfect man in that aspect. But now he's having issues, and doesn't seem to care to try and fix them, which is driving me insane. Like beating a dead horse. We never have sex anymore, which is also vitally important to me. He had kidney stones a few times last year and has had issues ever since. And I've literally had to beg him to go to the doctor and get blood work. So it's been 1.5 years since we've fully done anything, and further strains the relationship. Now I think he might have torn his rotator cuff and he's been brushing it off for weeks. I love him more than anything, maybe even more than myself. He's an amazing partner in many, many aspects, and has been there for me when no one else has. But I'm tired of feeling like I'm the parent, and feeling like I care more about him than he cares about himself. I often feel like I've wasted what should have been the best decade of my life. I hate feeling like this. I feel like everyone thinks I'm an idiot. Comments. Commenter 1. This is sad, but I want to tell you this. You gave a lot of yourself in this relationship, and it hurts to look back and wonder if it was all a mistake. But listen, you didn't waste your 20s. You lived them. You learned what deep love feels like, what patience looks like, and what happens when you give too much of yourself to someone who doesn't match your effort. That's growth, even if it came with pain. The concerning part here isn't the age gap anymore. It's that you've slowly become his caretaker instead of his partner. You're guiding him, reminding him, begging him to care about his health, while no one's really looking out for you in that same way now. You sound like the only adult in this relationship, and that's not what you signed up for. The other red flag is that you've been waiting for years for the ring, for the family, for intimacy to come back, for something to move forward, and he keeps giving you promises instead of action. When someone keeps you in maybe someday for years, that's not love growing, it's love standing still. A good thing about all this, you're waking up, you're realizing what you want: a partner who matches your energy, who chooses you daily, who doesn't need to be parented into loving himself. You still have time, so much time. Your 30s aren't the end. They're the beginning with all the wisdom you earned from this. You didn't waste your 20s. You just learned who not to shrink yourself for again. Commenter 2, you can't get back the years you lost, but you can plan for the years ahead. He's almost 60 or is, and you want to have a baby. You may not have been thinking straight at 20, who does? But you should have enough wits to think about what your future will be like with someone twice your age, even more than others being in the medical field. This is just reality and life itself. We all age, and with that comes illnesses and life problems. I wish you the best. Reply, thank you, I appreciate it. I think part of my issue has been how he really took care of me with my health issues for a few years straight. And I feel like an absolute POS for even thinking about his potentially declining health and leaving him. That's been a real struggle for me. I know we're not married, but through sickness and health really sticks with me. Commenter 3. From what you've said, this is just your partner, not the fact that your partner is older. But also, I don't feel like there's any way to get through your 20s without regretting your choices. I didn't really start regretting my 20s until I hit my 40s, but there's no way to do it, and not wonder if it would have been better a different way. In fact, in some ways, I feel like that's the key aspect of aging. It's realizing that every choice has a cost. And even if you make the best choices, your options just keep getting narrower and narrower as you invest in one thing over another and get deeper into the consequences of your actions. Commenter 4. You're not an idiot. You went after what you thought you wanted, and you gave love. You are very brave. Just don't be afraid now to admit to yourself what your needs and wants truly are if they're changing. And to choose yourself, it's not your fault. It's part of life and growing. Stories number 15. I 42M, am no longer attracted to my wife, 39F, after a lot of cosmetic surgery. How to move forward. We've been together 20 years and have a great life together. To me, she has always been the most beautiful woman in the world. I've never so much as looked at another woman, and there wasn't a thing I would change about her. About 5 years ago, she started having Botox, and although I didn't think she needed it, it's her body, her choice. I noticed pretty soon after that her smile changed. Her whole face didn't light up like it did before, and it made her smile look fake and forced. But I didn't say anything, as she seemed happier. Then she asked me what I thought of lip fillers. I told her I didn't like them, and her lips were perfect to me. She had them done, and I'll be honest, I never liked them, and it felt horrible when we kissed like I was kissing another woman. Then it was cheek fillers. Then she had a nose job despite me begging her not to. I know it's wrong, as it's her body, but I wasn't looking at my wife anymore. Then she did something with her eyes, which made her look like a cat. Her most recent one is comically big boobs. She went from a perfect B cup to an F. In this time, she's also gone from 10.5 stone 147 pounds down to 8 stone 112 pounds. Plus, the amount of makeup she wears now is completely different to what it was 5 years ago. I feel awful saying it, but she's not who I got with. I feel like a hypocrite too because I know I've changed. My hair isn't what it once was. And I obviously look older than when we got together. I don't know where the need to change came from. She was doing really well in her job. Things are great between us. She used to have a lot of followers on social media, and just a simple, Selfie would get her over 1,000 likes, which isn't something she ever craved, and she'd always be a bit embarrassed by it, but now her followers have dropped, and her last selfie barely got any likes. She's suddenly upset over that. I've tried asking her why she has felt the need for all this, and she'll just say she wasn't happy with how she looked. And in her head, she genuinely thinks she looks better now. I've tried to gently suggest therapy, but that didn't go down too well. She started asking now why I don't want sex as much anymore, and I'm trying to make excuses, like I'm tired or just getting older and not in the mood as much. She spoke to me yesterday and said if something doesn't change in the next month, she wants to open the relationship, as she's gone from sex nearly every day to once a month at most. I actually felt a wave of relief when she said that, which is terrible, I know. I love who she is still, and if it was the choice between staying with her and never having sex again or losing her and having sex constantly again, I'd rather stay with her, as my life would be empty without her as a person in it. But what about being attracted to her? Is it something I can train myself to do? Do I just give in and try and force sex with her? TLDR, my wife has had too much cosmetic surgery, and I don't find her attractive anymore. I don't know how to handle this. Comments commenter 1. I feel like most responses are glossing over the absolute insanity of her dropping an ultimatum that OP has a month before she opens the relationship, i.e., cheats on him. Now all stories are one-sided, but what I'm reading here is, she gets to do whatever she wants without regard to OP's feelings. But the minute he's not exactly as she wants, she gets to threaten the relationship? I'd be extremely offended if I was treated that way. OP, it sounds like everything is coming to a head here and hitting all at once for you. These are multiple drastic changes that threaten relationship you thought you had. So you're probably panicking right now and looking for a way to fix the problem, which means that you're probably not going to hear what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway, so it might at least stick in the back of your mind. I don't think there's anything you can do to fix this, because I don't think this is actually a you problem. You've already articulated that you didn't like these changes. You should certainly engage in open dialogue like other responses are suggesting, but I don't think that will actually fix anything. Something drastic has changed in your wife, and she's already thinking about leaving. Otherwise, she'd never threaten to open the relationship, which, by the way, is not something one member of the relationship can just impose on the other. Whatever crisis she's going through, you don't have the power to fix it. Only she does. And it doesn't seem like she cares to. All you can do right now is focus on being the best you and dealing with the hand you're about to be dealt. Commenter 2. Maybe you should let her read this post. You have to be honest with her, because not being honest is ruining your marriage. You have to realize that by not telling her the thing you fear the post is happening, losing each other. I think she thinks you just tell her she does not need the treatment surgery, but you do like it. You really need to let her know you are not attracted to those changes. A lot of it is reversible. Also, she definitely needs therapy. She is probably brainwashed by social media. All I see now are women that had all kinds of procedures. Commenter 3, I would say honestly is always the best policy. Don't tell her that you liked how she looked before, because obviously she can't go back. But mention that the change in appearance is affecting your libido. Maybe she isn't aware of how drastically her appearance has changed. Maybe show her a before picture, and tell her that is who you envisioned growing old with, and you are having a hard time with the new her. She has to take some responsibility in this whole thing. It doesn't all fall on you. Commenter 4. You really don't have a choice about telling her the truth. How you tell her is what matters. Maybe even couples therapy to help smooth the way and launch her into her own therapy journey. Filler is dissolvable, and she may be able to have her eyes revised to look more like they did. The boobs can be reduced as well. Reply. I have suggested couples therapy, and I already got to therapy myself to try and build up the confidence to tell her what I need to tell her, but it's not working yet. I feel so guilty. What sort of husband can't even have sex with his own wife? Stories number 16. Wearing the watch my ex gave me has caused more trouble than I ever expected. I never thought a watch could cause this much drama. Seriously, it's a small silver fossil chronograph with a worn leather strap. Nothing flashy, nothing that screams sentimental. But the thing is, it was sentimental once. My ex, Kelsey, gave it to me for our 2-year anniversary. That was almost 4 years ago. Long before my current girlfriend, Emma, came into the picture. When Kelsey and I broke up, I kept the watch. Not because I was clinging to the relationship, but because it was a genuinely nice watch. I wore it occasionally, mostly to work, sometimes to family events. And it became just another accessory. To me, it lost its emotional meaning a long time ago. But a few weeks ago, that watch sparked a full-blown relationship crisis I didn't see coming. Emma and I have been dating for a little over a year. Things have been good. She's smart, kind, and patient, and she's the first person I've seriously considered a long-term future with. She's not the jealous type, or at least I didn't think so. One Saturday morning, we were getting ready to meet some friends for brunch. I was putting on the watch, and she stopped mid-sentence. "Wait," she said, her tone sharper than usual. "Is that the watch?" I blinked. "What do you mean, the watch?" "The one your ex gave you." It took me a second to remember I'd mentioned it months ago in passing when we were talking about old gifts. I shrugged. "Yeah, I guess so." "Why?" Her face tightened. "Why are you wearing it?" I told her I just liked the way it looked, that it matched the brown shoes I had on, that it wasn't about Kelsey at all. But Emma didn't buy it. She said it was disrespectful, that wearing something given to me by an ex was like carrying a piece of that relationship into ours. I tried to explain that it wasn't about Kelsey anymore, that the watch didn't mean anything, but she got quiet, and I could tell she didn't believe me. She didn't say anything more about it that day, but I could feel the distance. That night she brought it up again. She said it made her feel like she was competing with a ghost, that even if I said the watch didn't mean anything, the fact that I still chose to wear it meant it must mean something. I told her she was overthinking it, and I'll admit that was the wrong thing to say. Her face fell, and she just said, "Okay," and went to bed. The next morning, the watch was gone from my nightstand. When I asked her about it, she told me she put it in the drawer because she didn't want to see it anymore. I was annoyed, maybe more than I should have been. I told her she had no right to touch my stuff, and that it was a watch, not a symbol of infidelity. We ended up not talking for the rest of the day. Over the next week, things got awkward. Every time I tried to have a normal conversation, it came back to that damn watch. She kept saying it wasn't about the object, it was about what it represented. But to me, it represented nothing. Just a functional accessory that told time. Finally, after days of tension, I decided to just stop wearing it. Not because I agreed with her, but because I didn't want to fight anymore. Peace seemed more important than pride. But here's where it got complicated again. A week later, I was at work, and one of my coworkers, Mark, came up to me with a small box. Inside was a brand new smartwatch. "For your promotion, man," he said with a grin. Figured it was time to upgrade. It was a kind gesture, and I told him I appreciated it. That night I showed it to Emma, expecting her to be happy. Instead, she said quietly, "So now you'll finally stop wearing her watch, huh?" The way she said it, her watch, made something click inside me. This wasn't just about the watch. It was about something deeper. I sat down with her that night and told her the truth. That I loved her, but I couldn't live under emotional surveillance. That I didn't want to feel like I had to erase parts of my past to make her comfortable. I told her everyone has a history, and the point of being in a healthy relationship is accepting that. She was quiet for a long time before she said, "You're right. I just didn't want to feel like a replacement." That hit me harder than I expected. Because deep down, I understood. I think everyone's been there. That gnawing fear that the person you love still carries pieces of someone else. We ended up talking for hours. She admitted her last boyfriend used to keep things from his exes and lie about them. So she associated holding onto gifts with emotional cheating. I admitted I hadn't been sensitive about how it might look from her perspective. By the end of that night, we'd made peace. She apologized for hiding the watch. I apologized for being dismissive, and the funny thing is, I haven't worn the watch since. Not because she told me not to, but because I don't need to. It sits in a drawer now, along with a few other reminders of my past life. And that's fine. It doesn't define me. It doesn't define us. The other day, I caught Emma glancing at the drawer while we were cleaning. She smiled a little and said, "You really haven't worn it again, huh?" I told her no, and that it wasn't about compromise. It was about peace. She hugged me then, and I realized something important. Sometimes it's not about the object itself. It's about showing the person you love that their comfort matters more than your pride. That doesn't mean erasing who you were. It just means choosing what's worth holding on to. And sometimes, it turns out the most valuable things aren't the ones you wear on your wrist. A few months passed after the whole watch argument, and things between Emma and me settled into this new, easy rhythm. It felt good again. Peaceful. We stopped bringing up old baggage, and we even started looking at apartments together. For the first time, I felt like we were moving in the same direction. Then, one night in early spring, The past decided to crash right through my carefully rebuilt present. I was out grabbing drinks with a few co-workers after work. It wasn't supposed to be a late night, just a congrats gathering because one of the guys from our team was leaving for another job. The bar was loud, the kind of place that always smells like whiskey and fried food, with neon signs flickering behind the counter. And that's when I saw her, Kelsey. She was sitting 2 tables away, laughing with a group of people I didn't recognize. Her hair was shorter now, dark instead of blonde, and she was wearing that same faint smile she used to have when she was trying to hold herself together in public. My stomach dropped. I hadn't seen her in nearly 4 years. I thought about ignoring her, but she noticed me before I could decide what to do. Her eyes widened for a second, then softened. She got up and walked over. "Hey," she said with that same easy tone that used to disarm me instantly. "Didn't expect to see you here." I managed a polite smile. "Yeah, small world. I guess." We made small talk for a few minutes. How work was going, how life had changed, that sort of thing. It was weirdly normal. I realized I didn't feel anything romantic, just a kind of distant nostalgia, like remembering an old version of yourself that you've long since outgrown. But then she glanced down at my wrist. "You're not wearing it," she said. Smiling faintly, I blinked. "Wearing what?" "The watch," she said, tilting her head slightly. "You used to wear it all the time." I froze for half a second. Of all the things for her to bring up, I chuckled awkwardly. "Yeah, I stopped wearing it," she smiled knowingly, like she understood exactly why. Girlfriend didn't like it? I didn't answer right away, and that silence probably gave her all she needed. She just said, "That makes sense, I get it," before changing the subject. We talked for a few more minutes before she went back to her friends. When I got home that night, Emma was on the couch watching TV. She looked up and smiled. "You're home early," and I swear I hesitated before saying anything. I debated whether I should tell her I'd seen Kelsey, not because anything happened, but because I knew how sensitive the whole ex topic had become. But honesty had become kind of a policy between us after everything. So I told her. Her face didn't change much when I mentioned it, but I could see the flicker of discomfort behind her eyes. "Oh," she said softly. "How was that?" "Fine," I said quickly. "It was just small talk." "Nothing weird," she nodded, but I could tell her brain was already spinning with questions she didn't want to ask. Later that night, when we were getting ready for bed, she finally said, "Did she mention the watch?" I stared at her for a second. "Yeah, actually." "She did." Emma gave a small, almost sad smile. "Of course she did." It wasn't angry. It was something else. Like she was bracing for a feeling she didn't want to have. I told her the truth. That Kelsey said it made sense I didn't wear it anymore. That it was a normal, respectful thing to do. I made sure to emphasize that there was no weird energy between us. But the tension was back. Over the next few days, Emma got quieter. Not angry quiet. Just distant. I'd catch her staring off while we were having dinner or scrolling through her phone. When I asked what was wrong, she'd say, "Nothing. I'm fine." But her tone said otherwise. Then one night, it all came out. We were sitting on the couch, half watching a show, when she suddenly muted the TV and said, "I just keep thinking about her." I looked over, confused. "Kelsey?" She nodded. "It's not even that you saw her. It's just, I don't know. I hate that she was such a big part of your life, that there are things about you she knew first, that she gave you something that still mattered enough for her to bring up years later." Her voice cracked a little at the end, and for the first time, I realized how deep her insecurity really ran. It wasn't about jealousy. It was about comparison, about feeling like she could never quite erase the shadow of someone who came before her. So I told her everything. I told her that Kelsey and I had been wrong for each other from the start, that we'd tried to fix things we couldn't fix, that when she gave me that watch, it was the last good moment before everything went downhill. And then I told her the truth I'd never said out loud before. I kept the watch because I didn't want to forget how it felt to be cared about when everything else in my life was a mess. But then I met you, and I didn't need reminders anymore. Emma's eyes softened, and she leaned her head on my shoulder. We didn't talk for a while after that. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind that says I understand you now. The next morning, I opened my nightstand drawer and took out the watch. It looked different to me now. Not sentimental, not symbolic, just an old object that had served its purpose. I drove to a donation center during lunch and dropped it off without saying anything to Emma. That night, she noticed it was gone. "You donated it, didn't you?" she asked, half smiling. I nodded. "Yeah." It didn't mean anything anymore. She reached over, squeezed my hand and said, "Thank you." Months later, When we moved into our new apartment, I found an old photo of Kelsey and me tucked inside one of my storage boxes. I paused for a second, not because I missed her, but because I realized how far I'd come. Sometimes letting go isn't dramatic, it's quiet. It's just a moment when you realize the past doesn't have a hold on you anymore. That the person standing next to you now is the one worth building everything else around. And in that quiet, ordinary apartment, with Emma laughing in the kitchen and sunlight spilling through the blinds, I realized that love isn't about what you keep, it's about what you choose to let go of. 6 months after donating the watch, Emma and I were in a place I'd never been with anyone before. Stable, calm, and genuinely happy. Life had that sort of quiet rhythm you only get after surviving chaos. We were living in a small apartment downtown, splitting bills, arguing over what to order for dinner, and making plans that didn't feel like wishful thinking. I thought that meant we were unshakable. But peace doesn't always mean you're done being tested. It started small. One Saturday morning, Emma and I went to brunch with her best friend Tori and her fiancé Ben. The conversation was light: wedding venues, work, a new TV show. Then out of nowhere, Ben said, "Oh, by the way, we're thinking of doing matching watches for the groomsmen. I'll send you the catalog later, man." Emma froze. I could feel it. It wasn't even about the topic. It was about what it represented. I saw her shoulders stiffen, the faint tension in her jaw. I laughed it off, changed the subject, and thought that was the end of it. That night, though, she was quiet again. She sat at the table, scrolling through her phone with this faraway look. Finally, I asked, "What's going on?" She sighed. "It's stupid. Try me." She hesitated, then said, "When he mentioned watches today, I don't know. I thought about her again. About how something that simple still makes me think of her. I hate that she's still in my head." I reached across the table, took her hand, and said, "She's not in your head. She's in the past. You're just remembering a chapter I already closed." She smiled faintly, but her eyes were glossy. And that's when she said something that stuck with me. "I know you moved on, but sometimes I still feel like I'm living in the shadow of a ghost." That hit me hard. For a few days after that, I started noticing how often her insecurities crept in. Not just about my ex, but about everything. If I worked late, she'd ask if something was wrong. If I seemed distracted, she'd worry I wasn't happy, it wasn't clingy. It was fear disguised as curiosity. I wanted to fix it, so I decided to do something that would make it crystal clear where I stood. 2 months later, I planned a weekend getaway, just us, to the place she'd always said was her dream destination, Lake Tahoe. She thought it was just a short break from work, but I had other plans. We spent the day hiking, laughing, and just breathing. That night, we went down to the dock. The water was still, the sky full of stars, and I had the ring in my pocket. I was terrified, not because I doubted her, but because I realized I'd never been so sure about anyone in my life. When I got down on one knee, she gasped. I told her everything I'd never said out loud before. How she taught me what real love feels like, how she helped me stop defining myself by the past, and how every version of me she met was better because of her. She cried, a lot. Then she laughed and said, "You're lucky I wore waterproof mascara," when she said yes. I swear the whole world got quieter for a second. We sat on the dock for a long time afterward, just holding hands. And then she said, almost in a whisper, "I'm glad you wore that old watch once, because it led you to me." That's when I realized forgiveness and healing aren't about pretending something never happened. They're about seeing what came after and realizing it was all leading here. Now, a year later, I'm married. We still argue about dumb things like dishes and thermostat settings. But we're good. Better than good. The watch, the ex, the doubts, it's all gone. And every now and then, when I check the time on my wrist, I smile. Because the watch I wear now isn't a reminder of where I've been. It's a promise of where we're going. Stories number 17. Why are chubby girls ignored? I'm so frustrated, I hate this. I'm chubby, not obese, just overweight, and I could definitely lose some kilos. But why do I always get treated like my opinion is lesser? A fit friend could be saying the same thing as me, same confidence, and I get treated invisibly. I don't even think I look that bad when I dress up. I try my best to be positive, but I literally heard that chubby girls are practically invisible. This is even worse because I work in CS, currently interning at this AI company, and constantly, I feel like my ideas are shut down or some people look at me in disgust. The more fit colleagues of mine don't have this issue and have had a great time. I don't think I'm ugly, just average, and I am okay with that. But I hate this feeling of being treated lesser when I'm just fat. This is also horrible when we have company lunches. Because one time I tried to go for seconds, and a male intern literally snorted and said, "Yay, that's how you become plus-sized soon." I just want to be treated like my skill level. Is that so hard? On any other people like me having this issue? Edit. Just to clear up some things. I'm just a college student who's just gotten her first internship at an AI company. It's basically my first official job. It's been an eye-opening experience at how most of my colleagues ignore me compared to other interns. I'm also from an Asian country, so there's that too. I literally just wish people could see my skill level and move on. Comments, commenter 1, real answer? Reality is if you're hot, you get listened to more. Literally that simple. Years ago, I male lost 40 libias and got straight up ripped. Had a trainer for a few months. It was wild how different people responded to me. Doors opened that appeared out of nowhere. Looking good gets you a frightening amount of initial respect and credit even with other men. Mind you, I shortly thereafter went through a bad breakup and put most of the weight back on. But hey, it was fun while it lasted. Commenter 2. Attractive people are given more attention in all aspects of life. This applies to women and men. It's just the way the world works. Commenter 3. I'm chubby, and I grew neutral to people because of that. I'm Japanese, so a lot of people I used to talk were Japanese and everyone is skinny and shit. I was always the odd one out and the funny friend. It's good to be funny, but I was never worth to people. If they can have a better person, they would just trash me and I would be alone again. I was skinny, I was fat, I was popular, I was a loser, and at some point I was everything. And still sometimes it's the people who are in this world. Appearance matters sometimes, and when I was pretty I felt like people I never talked to were talking to me suddenly, since here being seen as fat was like a lazy, dirty person. But that's not true. Sometimes it's the right people. I gave up on trying to find friends and people who don't care about me as the person I am. And I found a friend that could actually care about me and saw all my faces in life. Sometimes I just need to turn off my brain and just live my day with people I despite. But that the life we have, people sucks. Commenter 4. Good-looking people are more listened to than average people. More news at 10, more seriously, it shouldn't happen, but it does. And nothing you can do will change it. It starts as soon as primary school and it never ends. You can kinda compensate it by learning how to have a lot of charisma or being a reputed expert in your field, so your words will carry more weight. But the good-looking female will always have more attention than you on random topic. And the older you will get, the worse it will go. That's just how life is. It will only really changes when shit start hitting the fan hard. At this point, the cute and young with clearly no clue about how to solve the problems will fall back in line, while it will finally be your time to shine. And once the problem is solved, it's back to step 1 again. I had the same problem for all of my 20s to 30s. Now, I have more work XP, and people usually turns to me for problem plus. I started working out and eating better while most of my male friends gained weight and dropped the gym. It's never too late. Stories number 18. My wife has gained 30 plus pounds since we've met. My M33 wife F30 has gained more than 30 pounds since we met in 2022, and I couldn't be happier. She has always struggled to put on weight, and when we met she was 5'6" and around 100 lbs. She never really forced herself to eat healthy, but she also didn't actively avoid things that were unhealthy. She would mainly just listen to her body and eat what made her feel good. That kind of backfired over time because when she's stressed, she doesn't eat anything more than a handful of crackers or berries. She was also living with her parents before we got married last year, and they were primarily interested in helping with my wife's mental or physical health journey. Since moving in after the wedding, our life hasn't been all fun and games. She struggled to adjust after moving away from her parents for the first time. She left an agency job to start in private practice. We needed to get new cars after our cars were unreliable. We moved. I lost my job, got a new, better one though, and she is currently in recovery for her second surgery in the last 3 months, for a congenital defect in her hips that was causing her a lot of arthritis-like pain. We went to the mall today because some of her bras weren't fitting right. I convinced her to get measured, and her band and cup size has increased, which triggered me to ask the usually ill-advised question of how much she weighs now. She's hovering around 132 lbs these days. Even with the stress in our lives lately, she's feeling a lot more comfortable than she felt before, and she's able to eat more full meals more often. I'm so proud of her for doing better, I of course told her. I just wanted more people to know, because I'm so happy she's at a healthy weight for probably the first time since she was a kid. Comments, commenter 1. Definitely did not see that twist from reading the title. Good for her for gaining weight through hard times. My wife and I have both gained weight since we met when we were teenagers, and I can't love her more. Commenter 2 reply. Went back and forth on whether to post this because it's such a positive post. But I was a thin person who suddenly gained weight, and it was because of insulin resistance. I used to eat like your wife too, only when I was comfortable and not when I needed to, which I now know can cause insulin resistance. If the 30 lb weight gain was during a short period of time, might be good to go get her blood work done. Reply. Her blood work has been done many times over. She was having a lot of leg and joint pain. Come to find out, she has EDS, but she had to go through a bunch of specialists to rule things out since she has the subtype that doesn't have a known genetic marker. Though a study came out this week that may have found a few, and it's awaiting peer review. Commenter 2 reply. If she had other more immediate issues to take care of, doctors might not have paid attention to her A1C, fasting blood sugar, etc. Might be worth looking into if she gained a lot of weight in a relatively short period of time. I was under 110 my entire adult life, and then within about 1,005 years gained 30 pounds without significant changes to my diet and exercise. Stories number 19. My man found boxers that aren't his at our place, okay? This is my first time writing in, and I might be all over the place. So I female 27 am a stay-at-home mom. My partner male 42 works full-time. He is not the father of my child, but we've been dating for about 6 months, and we just started living together. Today, October 11th, he was getting ready for our date night, which I practically had to beg him to plan. He came downstairs to tell me he found another man's boxers. They were medium and not the type of underwear he would normally use. I was completely caught off guard because I promise on my grandma's fucking grave I have no fucking idea where they come from, but I remember clearly while unpacking his dresser that I folded those and thought to myself, man, these are small. Would love to see him in them. Anyways, I told him the truth that I don't know where they came from, and that I would never do anything to lose his trust. I could tell he was still bothered by the response, but I continued to get ready for our date night. Before we left, I sat him down and tried reassuring him by saying, I know this would get in my head, but I want to promise you and reassure you that those were in your stuff. I love you and I want to know you're and we're okay. He dismissed me by watching the TV and just saying, it is what it is, I have no proof, so I need to get over it. This hurt because I literally am always all over this man, and we've had several discussions about how I have to beg affection out of him. His excuse is that he's never been a loving or affectionate guy anyways. We go out and, honestly, the whole night he kept throwing jabs at me by saying jokes about me being a hoe, not actually using the word hoe, but definitely insinuating it. I kept ignoring it and trying to keep the night light. Well, after visiting several bars and not eating, he decided he wants to head home. I got upset and finally crashed out, just explaining that he's been mean and that I've been drinking, so I need to eat something since I've been starving since we left. We left around maybe 5 p.m. and at this point it was about 9 p.m. Only been drinking because that's what he wanted and no food at all. We're home and he just keeps saying he can't prove anything, and he ended up leaving me home and leaving our place, and at this point it's 10 p.m. I don't care what to do, and I don't care if I'm just overreacting because we've been drinking, but I don't think it's right for him to throw jokes all night about me being unfaithful and then him leaving me at home while he goes God knows where at 10 p.m. on a Saturday night. I understand what he found could be upsetting. I mean, I would be upset about finding underwear that isn't my size, but I tried reassuring him. Plus, the jokes were not necessary. If he felt he couldn't handle going out, I'm a very understandable person. I would have just gone to the gym. If he didn't want to have date night, my daughter spent the night at my mom's because we wanted to have a child-free night. Please help. I don't care what to think. I told myself I wouldn't put up with toxic behavior, but I'm at a crossroads of being too cold and cutting people off and being understanding. I need help. Comments. Commenter 1. You moved your child in with a man you've only been with for 6 months? Commenter 2. He's 15 years older than you. You're living together after only 6 months. And you have to beg him to plan things, honey. Heed the red flags and end this relationship. Commenter 3. You've only been dating this guy for 6 months, and now you've moved in with him. Despite not knowing him well at all, why have you chosen to be financially dependent on someone you barely know? That wasn't a wise choice, since now you feel trapped in the situation. The first thing you need to do is find a job. Once you get a regular income established and stash away some savings, you need to move out, for better or worse. He thinks you're a cheater, and he's going to mentally abuse you and throw the underwear incident up in your face whenever he gets annoyed with you. It doesn't matter who the underwear belongs to. He believes it belongs to someone you slept with in his home, and he's not going to let that go. This is one of those red flag incidents that points to trouble ahead. If he's not going to believe anything you say, or give you the benefit of the doubt, then you have no basis for a relationship. Commenter 4. I'm sorry, but moving in your child after knowing someone for 6 months is not good parenting. You're really showing your age when you say, I asked all the right question, as if someone is going to openly tell you how much of a shitty person they are. You sound very naive and should be putting your child as your top priority, not moving in with a new man after 6 months. Your child needs stability. Stories number 20. You want to treat my fellow convention attendee like garbage? Okay, there will be consequences. 30 years ago, having just gotten my degree, I went to a national convention to look for a job. I didn't get a job, but I did get to meet an amazing author, Gene Wolfe, and get an autographed book for free. Fair trade. The convention was in Miami Beach. In July, absolutely miserable weather when it wasn't horrifically hot. It was raining. Well, it was always horrifically hot. But when the sun wasn't making life miserable, it was due to heavy rains. Anyway, when the convention finished up and we were checking out of our small hotel near the convention center, my fiancé and I gathered our luggage and went to the front desk to check out and pay our bill. We arrived at the front desk and we found the desk attendant refilling their small, overpriced snack vending machine while treating one of our fellow conventioneers like garbage. As we stood there waiting to pay, we overheard her complaints to the hotel guy. She apparently had been staying in one of the rooms on the top floor, and the roof leaked. The rainwater went into her closet and ruined a lot of her clothes. The hotel guy listened to her, and it was pretty clear that he didn't give a damn. She was just another customer who was going to be checking out today, and he didn't have to worry about repeat business. And he was obviously not going to reimburse her for the full cost of the damages from the rain. It seemed to me that she'd be lucky if she got anything. Finally, he paused the conversation argument with her long enough to take our money and check us out. Then he told her that they could continue their discussion in the back office. As we prepared to leave the hotel, he escorted her back to the office so he could presumably tell her to get stuffed without other guests overhearing. I watched them walk to the offices, and then I realized that the hotel guy had left the vending machine unlocked, and he'd left the keys to the vending machine in the lock, so I grabbed the vending machine keys, and I threw them away when we got to the airport. There were multiple keys on the key ring, and it looked to me as though they were the same. Since then, I've always hoped that I threw away all of the keys for the vending machine because the hotel staff were stupid enough to leave all of the keys for the vending machine on one key ring. I've frequently wished that I could tell my fellow librarian that she might have lost some clothing due to water damage, but the hotel probably lost money because they had to pay a locksmith for new keys to that vending machine, and temporarily lost the income from the vending machine since they couldn't lock it shut until they resolved the missing key problem. Comments. Commenter 1. I lived in a high-rise apartment building and my truck wouldn't fit in the underground parkade. It didn't have a lift kit, but it was a 2500 heavy-duty, with slightly larger tires, and it did have a headache rack that stuck above the cab a few inches. The apartment had a very limited number of outdoor stalls at the rear of the building, one of which I was assigned. One Saturday afternoon I was going out with some buds from work, and when I exited the building there was a 53D trailer backed up to the building with 4 guys moving furniture in. The truck was kind of jackknifed in, and the trailer landing gear were less than a foot from my front bumper. My truck was also backed in with another vehicle behind it. I was trapped. I asked the first guy I saw if they could move the truck. He said I had to ask his boss, asked which one that was, and then waited for the described person. After waiting 15 minutes, asked a different guy where the boss was and was told he was upstairs. Supervising thanks, went in search of the guy and asked him to move his truck so I could get out. Truth be told, he only needed to straighten out his backup job and I could have snuck by. But he flat out refused, and frankly was quite rude about it. Told me tough shit, fuck off and wait. Went back downstairs to do just that, and as I was sitting in my truck, smoking and listening to tunes, I noticed there was a padlock hanging off the side door of the trailer, and there was a simply huge ring of keys stuck in it. I waited until there were none of the movers around, and I took the ring of keys, put them inside my jacket, and then went and threw them into some bushes some distance away. Then I went back up to my apartment and called my buddies to tell them I wouldn't be joining them. About 4 hours later, the building manager called me about the keys being missing. The movers were done and wanted to leave. I told them I didn't know what he was talking about. He asked me to meet him in the back lot, which I did. Boss Mover was all up in my face saying he knew I took his ring. And there were over 75 keys on it, and most were one of a kind, including the truck ignition key. I just played dumb. Building management suggested we look at the surveillance video. I was a little scared. I didn't realize there were cameras back there, but I played it cool. We all went to the office and watched the footage. But the cockeyed way he parked the trailer blocked most of the camera's field of view. You could see me get out of my truck and walk towards the trailer, but couldn't see me actually touch the keys and then walk back beside my truck, exiting the video near the back of the vehicle. But there was nothing in my hands. The footage proved nothing. Boss Man called the cops, but they too watched the footage. Asked me if I had the keys, which I didn't, so I said no, and said there was nothing further to be done. I asked if we were done and when I was going to be able to drive my truck. I was told to rent a car and submit my receipts, which I did. The truck moved the next day, but the trailer was left, perhaps out of spite, at the same angle, blocking me in until Wednesday. When I was finally able to move my truck, I noted the side was scratched up, and the driver's mirror was hanging down. We went back to the videotape and clearly saw the boss man walking back and forth beside my truck before taking the mirror in both hands and breaking it off. It was my turn to call the cops. The moving company ended up paying my car rental tab, $375 or, plus $5,500 worth of bodywork, paint, decals, and a new mirror. I hoped it also cost a bundle to replace all those keys. I lived there for 2 more years after that, and I would check on the key ring from time to time. They were still there the day I moved out. Commenter 2 YTA, you're clearly a fucking AH. Management could have handled this, especially since you really didn't hear the whole story or know their processes, and clearly, the front desk person was juggling. UTF, dude. You act like you were saving a person from getting attacked. You were the attacker. Stories number 21. My coworker said my lunch didn't belong in the office fridge. Because it smelled too poor. I work at a mid-sized marketing firm in Denver, and I've always been the type to keep to myself. I'm polite, friendly enough, but I don't gossip or hang out much outside work. I like peace. I like predictability. I like bringing my homemade lunch, sitting at my desk, and eating in quiet while scrolling through my phone or catching up on emails. I've been at this company for 3 years now, and it's mostly fine. There's the usual office drama, the occasional micromanaging, but I've managed to stay under the radar, until recently. I bring homemade food most days because I grew up in a household where wasting money on takeout was a luxury. My mom taught me how to cook when I was a teenager. Stews, curries, soups, and all sorts of one-pot meals that stretch for days. I'm not ashamed of that, but I guess some people think being practical is low class. Enter Jessica. She's one of those co-workers who walks into a room and somehow makes everything about her. She's in her early 30s, always talking about her new designer bag, her fiancé's Tesla, or how her dog's groomer totally gets her aesthetic. She's not my boss, but she acts like she's everyone's supervisor. She's the kind of person who says, no offense, but, and then says something offensive anyway. Last Wednesday, I brought leftover lentil stew to work. I'd made it the night before with onions, garlic, cumin, and a bit of turmeric. Nothing too crazy. When I heated it up in the microwave, I noticed a couple of people looking around. Probably because of the smell. It's strong, sure, but it's not bad. It just smells like food that wasn't made from a box. When I opened the fridge later that afternoon to grab a soda, my container was gone. I thought maybe someone accidentally moved it, but when I checked the trash bin nearby, I saw my lunch dumped out in a plastic bag, my Tupperware sitting on top, empty. I just stared at it for a second, processing. Then I heard Jessica's voice behind me. Oh, you found it. Yeah, I had to toss it. It was stinking up the fridge. I turned around, still stunned. You what? She shrugged like it was the most normal thing in the world. I mean, no offense, but whatever that was. It smelled like I don't know. Like something from one of those cheap food carts downtown. I just couldn't take it anymore. I felt this rush of anger and humiliation all at once. That was my lunch, Jessica. Well, you should probably stick to something lighter. The office fridge isn't for... She paused, lowered her voice and said, whatever that was, not everyone wants to smell poor food while they grab their salads. I don't even remember what I said next. Something like, that's not your decision to make. But she just smiled that fake, tight-lipped smile people use when they think they're untouchable and walked away. I spent the rest of the day pretending to focus on work, but my mind was spiraling. I felt this weird mix of shame and fury, like I'd just been told that who I am, where I came from, Didn't belong in that sterile little break room. When I got home, I told my boyfriend, Aaron, about it. He was furious. "You should report her," he said immediately. "That's harassment. That's classist as hell." I wanted to agree, but I hesitated. Jessica's been here longer than me. She's close with our manager, Derek, and she's the kind of person who can twist a story until she looks like the victim. I could already picture her saying something like, "Oh, I was just trying to help." I didn't realize she'd be so sensitive, so I did nothing that night. But the next day, things escalated. I brought a sandwich this time, something I thought no one could possibly complain about. Turkey, lettuce, cheese, mayo. I kept it in a brown paper bag just to avoid attention. Around lunchtime, I went to the fridge again. My bag was there, but my sandwich was gone. The wrapper was sitting there, empty, with a sticky note on top that said, "Problem solved." That's when I lost it. I walked straight to HR. Our HR rep, Megan, is one of those people who looks like she's always on the verge of being too tired for nonsense. But when I told her what happened, the comment about poor food, the note, the repeated incidents, her expression shifted. "Did she really say that?" she asked. "Yes," I said. Word for word, she wrote everything down, thanked me, and said she'd look into it. I didn't expect much. I figured Jessica would just get a slap on the wrist. But that afternoon, I noticed Megan and Derek pulling Jessica into a conference room. She looked annoyed at first, then defensive, then pale. The next morning, Jessica didn't show up. Neither did her coffee mug, her plants, or her little motivational quote board that used to sit on her desk. Turns out, she'd been put on leave pending investigation. And when HR reviewed the security footage, they found multiple instances of her messing with people's food. Not just mine, apparently. She'd thrown out or rearranged lunches she thought were gross. She resigned 2 days later. Derek came by my desk to apologize. "We had no idea," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I'm sorry that happened here. You didn't deserve that. I appreciated it. But I also realized something that stuck with me. She wasn't just being a bully. She genuinely thought she was better than people like me. That's what made it sting more than anything." A week later, Megan called me back into HR. She said they'd updated the employee conduct policy to include explicit guidelines about tampering with personal belongings or food. "This shouldn't have needed a policy," she said, "but sometimes people need things spelled out." I went back to my desk feeling oddly proud. Not because I'd won, but because I'd stood up for myself. The next Monday, I brought lentil stew again. I reheated it in the microwave, and when the smell started filling the room, I saw a few people glance around. Then Derek walked by, smiled, and said, "Smells good in here." That was the moment I knew I belonged just as much as anyone else. It's been about 3 months since everything went down with Jessica, and I'll be honest, the office hasn't felt the same. In some ways, it's better. In others, well, it's complicated. After she left, there was this weird silence that lingered for weeks. You don't realize how much one person's presence fills a space until they're gone. It wasn't that anyone missed her, but it's like the air itself had to readjust. People stopped eating in the break room for a bit. Everyone kind of avoided bringing up what happened. But slowly, things started to shift. Megan from HR called me in again a few weeks later. Not to talk about the incident, but to ask if I'd be willing to join a new Respect in the Workplace committee. I laughed when she said it because, honestly, it sounded corny. But she explained that they wanted to build something that wasn't just reactive. Something to make sure people actually felt safe in their environment. I said yes. At first, it was just a couple of us. Me, Megan, Evan from IT, Sophia from accounting, and Rachel, one of the newer interns. We met once a week during lunch to brainstorm ways to make the office culture less toxic. Some of the ideas were small, like fridge cleaning schedules and labeling rules. But others turned into big picture changes, like mandatory diversity and sensitivity training that wasn't just some boring slideshow. The thing is, before all this, I never saw myself as the type to speak up. I hated attention. I'd rather blend in than stand out. But being humiliated like that, being made to feel like I didn't belong, flipped a switch in me. Now I speak up a lot more, and something unexpected happened. People started confiding in me. Jamie, one of the admin assistants, told me that Jessica used to make fun of her accent behind her back. Eric, one of the interns, said she once commented that his hoodie made the office look like a college dorm. I wasn't surprised, but hearing it confirmed that it wasn't just me she targeted. It wasn't just about smelly food. It was about control, superiority, and putting people in their place. One afternoon, I was sitting at my desk when Derek came by again. "Got a minute?" he asked. I followed him into his office. He looked uncomfortable, which wasn't like him. "I wanted to tell you something. Off the record," he started. "When everything happened, Jessica's exit interview was intense. Apparently, she'd accused me of setting her up, claiming that I'd intentionally brought foreign-smelling food to provoke her. Derek said HR immediately dismissed that claim, but it showed just how deep her prejudice ran. She couldn't even see why she was wrong," he said quietly. "That's what's sad. That night I sat with that thought. Some people can't be reasoned with. They'd rather cling to their narrow view of the world than admit they were cruel. And you can't fix that. You just have to move forward and make sure people like that don't get to keep hurting others." Outside of work, things changed too. Aaron kept telling me how proud he was. He'd seen how small I used to make myself just to keep the peace. Not just at work, but in life. I'd always been the person who said, "It's fine, I'll let it go." But this time I didn't, and it showed me something I didn't know about myself. I can stand up, even when my voice shakes. It even made me rethink other areas of my life. I signed up for a public speaking workshop at the community center. Me, the girl who used to hide behind her monitor and eat lunch alone, now standing in front of strangers telling stories. The first one I told? About the stew, about that day in the break room, and what it taught me about shame and power. A woman came up to me afterward, teary-eyed, and said, "You just told my story." She worked as a nurse, and her co-workers used to make fun of the weird rice and beans she brought from home. She said she started eating in her car just to avoid comments. That's when it really hit me. This wasn't just my story. It was 1,000 quiet stories from people who've been made to feel small for no reason at all. Back at work, something funny happened a few weeks ago. We got a new hire, Lydia, mid-20s, bright-eyed, fresh out of college. On her second day, she brought in homemade food, and I saw her hesitate before microwaving it. I caught her looking around nervously and said, "Don't worry, this office smells like whatever we want now." She smiled. "Are you the stew lady?" I laughed so hard I almost cried. "Yeah," I said, "that's me. Now people bring everything. Chili, dumplings, curry, pasta, enchiladas. The break room smells like a food festival most days. It's chaotic and loud, but it feels human. And every now and then, when someone reheats something particularly aromatic, someone will joke, 'Smells rich in culture, not poor in taste.' It's become kind of an inside joke, one that reminds us where we started and how far we've come. So yeah, maybe that whole situation broke something in me for a bit, but it also built something new, something stronger. I used to think being quiet was the same as being kind. Now I know there's power in speaking up. Not just for yourself, but for everyone who hasn't yet found their voice. And every time I heat up my lentil stew, I feel a little more at peace. It's been almost a year since everything happened with Jessica. Sometimes I still think about that day in the break room, not with anger anymore, but with this weird sense of disbelief, like, did that really happen? Did I really get shamed for my lunch and then end up changing my entire workplace culture because of it? Life has a strange way of flipping things around. The Respect in the Workplace Committee has actually grown into something real. HR expanded it into an official program. We even got a small budget, and somehow, I ended up being one of the co-leads. That still feels surreal to say out loud. Me, the girl who used to eat quietly at her desk to avoid bothering anyone, now leading discussions on inclusion and empathy. We hold monthly lunch and learn sessions where people share food from their culture and talk about its meaning. It started small, but now half the office shows up. You'd see people who barely interacted before sitting together, laughing, sharing recipes, and asking genuine questions. It's become one of my favorite parts of the month, and the wildest thing, the company posted about it on LinkedIn, the post got shared around, and I got a message from a woman who works at another branch of our company in Chicago. She said she read the story They Didn't Use Names and wanted to start something similar there. She called it the Fridge Project. That message made me tear up at my desk. Then, a few weeks later, something happened I didn't expect. I ran into Jessica. I was out shopping at a grocery store on a Sunday morning, standing in the spice aisle, debating between two brands of turmeric. When I heard someone say my name, I turned, and there she was. For a split second, I didn't recognize her. She looked different, tired maybe, not bad, just subdued. She was holding a basket and wearing a plain hoodie, not the perfectly pressed blouses she used to wear to work. She smiled awkwardly. "Hey, long time, huh?" I managed a small smile back. "Yeah, it's been a while." There was this uncomfortable silence that stretched between us. Then she sighed and said, "Listen, I just wanted to say, I know I was awful back then. I thought I was being funny or whatever, but it was wrong. I didn't see how cruel it was until after." Her voice cracked a little when she said that last part. I didn't really know what to say. Part of me wanted to tell her how much it hurt, how I cried in my car that day, how I almost quit because of her. But another part of me saw how deflated she looked and realized I didn't need to say any of that anymore, because I'd already healed. So I just nodded and said, "Thanks for saying that." "I appreciate it," she nodded back. "You look happier," she said quietly, then walked away. I stood there for a while, staring at the shelves. It felt like the end of a story I didn't realize still needed an ending. I didn't feel vindictive or triumphant, just free. That night I told Aaron about it. He smiled and said, "See, you didn't just survive that, you grew from it." And he's right. Since then, I've started taking night classes in HR management. I want to eventually move into a role where I can help create workplace cultures that actually value people, places where someone like me, or anyone, never has to feel like their food, their clothes, or their background makes them less than. Funny how something so small, a lunch, a cruel comment, could spark something so big. When I heat up my lunch now, the whole break room fills with the smell of home, spices, warmth, comfort. People always come by to ask what I'm eating. And instead of embarrassment, I feel pride. Last week, our new intern, Tina, brought in her mom's homemade pho. She looked nervous setting it down, like she was bracing for someone to say something rude. I smiled at her and said, "Don't worry, around here, the stronger the smell, the better the food." She laughed, and we ended up eating together. And in that moment, I realized something. What started as a story about humiliation turned into a story about community, about reclaiming the small, ordinary things that make us who we are. I used to think people's cruelty defined the world. Now I know kindness does. You just have to be loud enough to let it take up space. So yeah, maybe that stew smelled poor to her. But it ended up feeding a lot of change. Stories number 22. AITA for not wanting my in-laws to stay with us more than once a month. I live in a suburb of a large city. My in-laws live about 325 hours south in a small town. They come up often for doctor appointments, shopping, or just to play. Sometimes there's a month between visits, but sometimes it's literally every weekend. I love my husband and my in-laws, but I hate feeling like our home is a hotel. They can afford a hotel but prefer staying with us. My meal loves to cook, and I used to feel pressure to cook big meals so I wouldn't look lazy. But now, I just tell my husband to suggest takeout because I'm tired of hosting. I also compulsively clean before they come, which drives me crazy. Our house is nearly 5,000 SF, and I deep clean everything, baseboards included, because I can't stand the thought of them seeing dirt. It's self-imposed and ironic, since their house isn't spotless. But I can't let it go. My husband helps, but he rushes, and I feel bad complaining since at least he's helping. This constant open-door policy has become a major sore spot in our marriage. Having my MIL, FIL, and 2 SILs stay so often makes me feel like it's not even my home anymore. For context, my parents live 20 minutes away and visit often, but they don't stay overnight. They come for a few hours, bring food, help clean up, and even help with house projects. My in-laws, on the other hand, just drop their plates in the sink after dinner to help. My husband does help me clean after dinner, but I always feel like the rude one for taking him away from them. He says I should be as welcoming to his family as he is to mine. But it's not the same. My parents visit, help, and leave. His family stays entire weekends and adds to my workload. As a stay-at-home mom, I feel like the meals and house reflect on me. So it's extra stressful. He insists they don't care, but he's their golden boy. They'd never judge him, just me. To make things worse, one Sil is living with us for 5 months while she's in school. I agreed to it to be kind, even though I'm an introvert. I'm terrified the visits will become even more frequent, and my husband just can't say no. The biggest issue is that my MIL cannot take a hint, even when we're clearly burned out, or when my husband tries to subtly dodge another visit. She keeps asking until he gives in. He doesn't really want them here that often either, but he's scared of offending her. She gets her feelings hurt easily, and instead of setting boundaries, he says yes and leaves me to deal with the fallout. So what's the right move? Should I ask him to limit their stays and risk offending them? He's hesitant, and it's becoming a major source of tension. I think once-a-month overnight visits are perfectly fair, but he says he can't tell them that, AITA. Stories number 23. AITA for being upset that my fiancé doesn't want to spend Christmas with my family, even though we've never spent a holiday with them and he sees his all the time. Hi Reddit. I 23F have been with my fiancé 25M for 7 years. We've been living in Claremont, FL for 6 years now. Most of our holiday plans throughout our relationship have always involved his family. Either he goes to visit them without me, or I go along with him. I've rarely had the chance to spend holidays with my side of the family. This Christmas, my sister, her husband, and her 3 kids are planning to fly down to Florida to visit, which is a big deal. They live in Delaware, and it's a rare opportunity to see them. My fiancé has never met them in person, only on FaceTime. And I've only met one of her kids in person myself. I really wanted both of us to spend Christmas with them this year. I offered to spend Thanksgiving and New Year's with his family as a compromise, especially since they live closer and we see them every few months. But when I brought it up, he said he doesn't know what he's doing for Christmas yet. The thing is, we're trying to plan in advance because we need to book an Airbnb before everything gets filled up, especially since we'd be going to Disney with the kids and I'm buying everyone's tickets, including potentially his. I told him I need to know if he's coming or not so I can plan properly. I gave him a week to decide, and his response was still basically, I don't know. He told me that anytime he gets an opportunity to see his family, he's going to take it, even if that means he never meets mine. That really hurt, and I ended up crying, but when I did, he got upset with me for being emotional and pressuring him. I just feel like I'm asking for something reasonable. One holiday, with my family, after years of only prioritizing his. It's not like I'm asking him to cut his family off, just to also make room for mine. But now I'm wondering if I'm being unfair or too emotional about it. AITA for being upset that my fiancé won't commit to spending Christmas with my family, even though we've never done holidays with them before. Edit, sorry, forgot to mention my other sister will be there, so 3 other adults total for him to interact with. He's met my other sister, we actually all lived together for a few months, like 6 years ago. LMAO. For more info, I don't really have any family other than siblings who live all over the place. A grandmother with terminal cancer who we see often. My mother is deceased father, never in the picture. Estranged from all other family but my siblings. I know the sister thing is confusing, the one flying lives in Delaware. The other one lived with us, and I grew up with full time, so he's used to her. Stories number 24. AITA for not wanting my parents or brother to use my girlfriend's car while she's away. Sorry for the wall of text, but I want to explain the full context. My girlfriend 31F went on vacation for a week and left me her car so I 33M could get to work. I still live with my parents and don't have my own car right now, but she trusted me with hers since she knows I'd be responsible with it. Here's where the problem starts. My dad already asked if my mom can use my girlfriend's car to drive my brother to work. My brother is 31, doesn't have a license, and makes more money than me, my dad, and my girlfriend. For context, I wasn't working for a while, so I hadn't been contributing financially at home. I was in school for 2 years, and before that I wasn't working due to some mental health issues and finding a job was difficult. My brother was giving my parents money each month, but sometimes he'd hold it back or skip gas money if he was mad that I wasn't paying. I've been trying to make up for it by helping out doing drives, errands, basically saying yes whenever they need something. Just to show I'm pulling my weight, I know I shouldn't be reliant on them at my age. Trust me, the embarrassment alone is tolling on me every day, and I'm actively trying to work on it. But the problem is they guilt-trip me into doing things. If I say no or even hesitate, it turns into comments about how I wasn't contributing before, or how my brother has been helping more financially. And if I bring it up, they get upset and act like I'm being ungrateful or difficult. It feels like no matter what I do, I owe them more. Last night, I needed a ride to pick up my girlfriend's car before taking her to the airport. My parents said it was too far, so they drove me to the train station instead. I took the train, thanked them for driving me. My girlfriend picked me up, I got her car, took her to the airport early this morning and came back home. I wanted to just relax for a bit after all that. But as soon as I got home, my parents asked me to go pick up my brother. I used their car, not hers, but it just annoyed me because I'd been running around non-stop. Then later, my dad brought up maybe my mom could use my girlfriend's car to drive my brother to work. I told him that's not right and it's not my car to lend out. My girlfriend gave it to me to get to work, not as a spare family vehicle. He said he understands, but then added, it depends on the situation, which basically means I'll still be guilted into saying yes if they want to use it. It's frustrating because I'm finally working again and trying to rebuild stability and move out, And the first day I have access to this car, it's already being pulled into catering to everyone else. My brother's 30 and doesn't even drive. That shouldn't keep falling on me. Plus, if anything happens to my girlfriend's car, I'm the one who's responsible, not them. So, AITA for refusing to let my family use my girlfriend's car and for being frustrated about always being guilt-tripped into driving my brother around. Update. Wow, I didn't expect so many responses to this post. I'm pretty new at making a post. I was also kind of frustrated and wanted to get it out quickly, so sorry for not maybe giving all the info. To be clear, I'm on the insurance for my girlfriend's vehicle. My parents are not. I knew that it would have been a breach of me and my girlfriend's trust to let them take it firstly, but without telling her would have been, like what most people have mentioned, a deal breaker. So I still stick by my decision. Just felt bad about it is all. Another thing I didn't add was the reason for my dad asking me for my mom to take my brother. My dad needed to get to work at 12 a.m. My brother starts at 6 a.m. So my mom would have to take my dad, take my brother, then pick up my dad again shortly after. So that's why I kind of felt bad like an asshole lol because it was a lot on my mom in the morning. I also had a talk with my brother. It went really well. I just wanted to be honest about how I felt and asked him some deeper questions. Things like why he hasn't gotten his license yet and how I was frustrated about the situation. He was really understanding and told me a lot about how he felt. So I'm glad I did, and we kind of made a plan about moving forward, which was reassuring. The resolution I made was that no one else was allowed to take the car. This was a non-negotiable, but to compromise and try to help, I said I would take my brother in the morning so my dad could have the car. Also, I hope this updates the post properly and doesn't mess anything up. Stories number 25, warned them I has sleep troubles and couldn't handle early shifts. They told me the late policy was non-negotiable. TLDR, manager says non-negotiable policy. Demonstrates that when they won't work with me after a family member dies, and then tries to negotiate when I decided I couldn't handle the job. I started a job at a local answering service a couple years ago. Decent place with fun co-workers and patient clients. I told management at the interview that I couldn't handle early shifts at 8 a.m. because I had been working late shifts for almost 15 years and couldn't get up that early anymore. They insisted on a month's training on the early shift, and I told them I would try my best because I wanted the job. They also made me sign a late policy point system paper. It was usual management BS, points per minute late, lose time off and other benefits based on points per month. Too many points and you're terminated. Typical managers dealing with someone else who can't manage their time and everyone's getting punished for it. A type of nonsense. The big rule, in bold at the bottom of the paper relevant to the story, was that a no-call, no-show to a shift would result in an instant termination. Fine, whatever. I don't have problems showing up on time. At least, usually I don't. I told them I took issue with it because super strict policies like this usually backfire on everyone, and the employees get the worst of it. I asked them if this would be an affect while I was training, and they said yes, it's non-negotiable, and that if I didn't sign, I wouldn't get the job. Fast forward 2 weeks, and my roommate is freaking out, driving my anxiety insane, and I'm dealing with a death in my family. I was seriously depressed, and getting no compassion from the new job on the issue. But they loved my work effort and kept telling me so. I'm answering calls and handling issues as effectively and quickly as some of their experienced employees. I even provided much-needed insight into one of their clients, as I had worked directly for them previously, and knew what was going on at the other end of the phones. Eventually, the stress caused me to crash. I went to bed one night and slept through my alarm until 5 in the afternoon the next day. All the way through a shift, effectively a no-call, no-show. So I just started looking for a new job, didn't call them up or try to show up the next day. Nothing. What was the point? I was terminated, and that was non-negotiable. Eventually they called me and told me to come pick up my paycheck, and when I did, the manager who made me sign the late policy paper came out, holding onto my check like she was implying she wanted answers before I got paid. She started grilling me on what happened, and why I didn't call to apologize or work with them on keeping my job. She was genuinely confused on why I didn't try to negotiate against a non-negotiable policy. I took my check directly out of her hands and told her, "You made it clear in the paperwork that I was fired, and that was non-negotiable." I still think about her response as she tried to reach for my check. "But you were so good at this." Edit. I don't have troubles with being late. I had hoped I had made that clear in the story. At my current job of 8 years, I've been late less than 5 times, and it is a 4 a.m. job that gave me time to adjust. I disagreed with the rigidity of the policy, not the with practice of being on time. Stories number 26. Hearts don't heal in perfect circles. When my older brother, Lucas, started dating Emma, it was the first time in years I'd seen him genuinely happy. Like, glowing happy. The kind of joy that makes you think maybe, just maybe, the world isn't such a bad place. I remember when he brought her home for the first time. She had that polished, city girl energy, perfect hair, expensive perfume, the kind of confidence that makes you feel underdressed even when you're not. But she was sweet. She complimented my mom's cooking, laughed at my dad's dumb dad jokes, and actually asked about my art school projects instead of just nodding through small talk. I liked her, we all did. Lucas and Emma met when he was working as an HVAC tech, and she was an assistant at a marketing firm. They weren't rich by any means, but they were happy, for a while at least. Then COVID hit. Work slowed down. Lucas got laid off for a few months, burned through his savings, and took whatever odd jobs he could get. Emma kept her job because she could work from home. But things shifted. The warmth started fading from her voice when she talked to him. She started saying things like, "Don't you ever want more? And we can't live like this forever." I overheard a few fights when I stopped by their apartment once. They weren't shouting. Just those quiet, heavy arguments that feel worse than yelling. Lucas tried to fix things. He took a second job, started working nights, saving every penny. He was exhausted all the time, but he didn't complain. He told me, "I just want to make her proud of me again." And then one night, she left. I remember getting a call around midnight. Lucas's voice was hoarse, like he'd been crying for hours. He said she came home, told him she loved him, but couldn't keep living in struggle. She wanted stability. She said she'd always imagined a different kind of life. Traveling, fine dining, nice houses, and that he was a great man, just not the man for that kind of life. He begged her to stay, but she didn't. She packed her things and left. That night broke him. For months, Lucas barely functioned. He'd go to work, come home, drink a beer, and stare at the wall. My mom tried to comfort him, but he'd just say, "I wasn't enough, that's it." And I went from liking Emma to despising her. Not because she left. People fall out of love, it happens. But because of how she left, she didn't just end things. She gutted him. She made him feel worthless for not having enough money, enough things, enough status. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was humiliation. A few months later, I heard through the grapevine that Emma started dating a guy who worked in finance. Big money. Fancy condo downtown, the whole cliché. I won't lie, I was disgusted. Fast forward a year, Lucas started healing. He met someone new. A teacher named Haley, sweet, genuine, down to earth. She wasn't flashy or materialistic. She laughed at his terrible jokes and encouraged him to go back to school for electrical work. She didn't need him to impress her. We all loved her. Then, out of nowhere, Emma reached out to me on Instagram. At first I thought it was a joke, but nope, it was really her. She messaged me saying she missed everyone and wanted to reconnect. She said she and her boyfriend had broken up, that things didn't work out, and she'd been doing a lot of reflecting. I didn't reply. A week later, she texted me directly. I guess she still had my number. She said she regretted how things ended and wanted to apologize to Lucas, in person. She said she realized she'd been shallow and that losing him made her realize what truly mattered. I didn't tell him, because he was finally happy again. He smiled more. He talked about the future with Haley. He even mentioned proposing someday. Why the hell would I bring Emma back into that picture? I told her, "You had your chance, stay away from him." She replied, "You don't get to decide that, I loved him too." That one pissed me off. So I said, "Then maybe you should have loved him when he didn't have money." After that, she didn't reply. A few weeks later, I found out she showed up at my parents' house. My mom called me, panicked. She said Emma was at the door crying, asking to see Lucas. Luckily, Lucas wasn't home. My mom told her to leave. When Lucas found out, he just sighed. He didn't even seem angry, he just said, "It's too late for that. That should have been the end of it." But somehow, Emma started worming her way back into people's lives, commenting on old Facebook posts, showing up at mutual friends' parties, trying to act like nothing happened. I ignored her every time. If I saw her in public, I walked the other way. Then one night, I got a long message from her. She said she knew I hated her, but she wanted me to understand that she wasn't the same person anymore. She said she'd lost her dad recently and that it put things in perspective. She said she missed our family, that she missed the holidays, the laughter, the smell of my mom's cooking, that she thought of Lucas every day. And you know what? I almost felt sorry for her. For a second, I even considered replying. But then, I remembered Lucas sitting on his couch, staring at the floor, whispering, I wasn't enough. So no, I didn't answer. A month later, Lucas and Haley got engaged. It was beautiful. An intimate backyard thing with string lights, a few close friends and family. He looked alive again, like the light had finally come back into him. We posted some photos on Facebook. The next morning, guess who messaged me again? Emma. She said she saw the pictures, that she was happy for him. But the message ended with, I'll always love him. Tell him I said that. I didn't show Lucas. I deleted it. Maybe that makes me controlling or petty. But I didn't want to ruin his peace. He's earned every ounce of happiness he has now. But lately I've been wondering, did I do the right thing? Emma's actions crushed my brother, yes, but people do change. What if she genuinely wanted closure? What if shutting her out completely made me just as cruel as she once was? Still, I can't shake the image of Lucas, sitting on that couch, broken. I'll never forget how small he looked that night. Some wounds don't need reopening. So yeah, maybe she changed, maybe she's sorry. But that apology doesn't belong to me anymore. It belongs to a man who finally found peace without her. And I'll protect that peace with everything I've got. A few months after Lucas and Haley's engagement, things in our family finally felt normal again. We were planning their wedding. Haley had basically become part of the family already. And Lucas was glowing in that way people do when they finally let themselves believe happiness won't vanish overnight. Then, one random Saturday afternoon, everything cracked open again. It was mid-March, cold enough that your breath fogged in the air, but warm enough that you could feel spring waiting just around the corner. Lucas was working overtime, and I stopped by his house to drop off some decorations Mom had ordered for their wedding. Haley opened the door with that soft, tired smile she always wore after long shifts at school. She asked if I wanted coffee, and while she brewed a pot, I noticed a white envelope sitting on the counter. My name wasn't on it, but Lucas's was, his full name. Written in handwriting I recognized instantly. Emma. I froze. It was like my brain couldn't quite process it at first. I thought she might have mailed it, but Haley noticed me staring and said almost casually, "Oh yeah, that woman dropped it off earlier today." I turned to her so fast I nearly spilled the coffee she handed me. "She came here?" Haley nodded. She was polite, honestly. Said she just wanted to leave a letter for Lucas, and that she wouldn't bother us again. My stomach twisted. I asked if Lucas knew, and she said he didn't. He was at work. The second she turned her back, I slipped the envelope into my jacket pocket. I know, it wasn't my letter, but all I could think about was that woman showing up again. After years of silence, after everything she'd done, she had the nerve to stand on his porch and try to re-enter his life. When I got home, I didn't open it right away. I just sat there staring at it like it might catch fire in my hands. It wasn't sealed very well, and after 2 hours of pacing, I opened it. It wasn't long, just 2 pages, handwritten, the kind of shaky handwriting that comes from too much emotion and not enough control. She said she'd been in therapy, that she realized how selfish she'd been. She wrote that she left Lucas because she was scared, not of poverty but of failure, that her parents always pushed her to marry up. And when things got hard, she listened to their voices instead of her own. She said she never stopped thinking about him, that every relationship after him felt hollow, that she'd recently gone through some health issues and started questioning the life she'd built. Then she wrote, "I don't want him back. I just want him to know that he was never the problem." I was. That line hit me harder than I expected. I sat there for a long time, just holding the letter. I wanted to hate her words. to throw the paper in the trash. But for the first time, it didn't sound like manipulation. It sounded like regret. Real, heavy, messy regret. When Lucas came by that weekend, I tried to act normal, but guilt ate at me. I felt like I was keeping a secret that wasn't mine to keep. So, after dinner, I told him about the letter. His fork froze halfway to his mouth. Then he sighed and set it down. "She came to the house?" he asked. I nodded. He didn't say anything for a while, just rubbed his temple like the conversation was physically exhausting him. "Do you still have it?" I hesitated, then pulled it from my bag and slid it across the table. He looked at it for a long time. He didn't open it right away either, just stared at his name written in that familiar script. "I thought I'd stopped caring about anything she did," he said quietly. "Guess not." I watched him read it, every flicker of emotion crossing his face. Sadness, nostalgia, relief. When he finished, he folded it neatly and placed it beside his plate. Then he said something I'll never forget. "She's right. She was the problem. But I think I needed her to be, for me to become who I am now." He leaned back and looked at me, eyes clear for the first time in a long time. "I don't hate her anymore," he said. "I just don't love her either, and somehow, that made me feel worse than if he'd screamed or cursed. Because he meant it, he was free, but Haley wasn't. Not completely." A few days later, Haley called me in tears. Apparently, Emma had sent her a message on Facebook too. She'd written that she didn't mean to cause any pain, and that she hoped Haley knew she wished them both happiness. It sounds harmless, but Haley admitted it rattled her. She said, "I trust Lucas, but I can't stop thinking, what if people like her never really go away?" That broke my heart. Haley wasn't insecure. She was human. The idea that some ghost of his past might always linger? That's hard to swallow, so I called Emma. I didn't even remember saving her number, but it was still there, buried under Do Not Answer. When she picked up, her voice was quiet. "I was hoping you'd call," she said. I told her, calmly but firmly, that she needed to stop, that Lucas read her letter, that he appreciated the closure, but this needed to be the end. She started crying. Not loud sobbing, just that broken, shaky kind of crying that comes from real guilt. "I swear I didn't mean to hurt them," she said. "I just wanted him to know he mattered," I told her. "He knows, but now you need to let him live that truth without you." There was silence for a long time. Then she whispered, "Okay," and hung up. That was 6 months ago. Since then, there's been peace. No more letters, no messages, no unexpected visits, just quiet. Lucas and Haley got married last weekend in a small ceremony at a lakeside park. It wasn't fancy, but it was perfect. When Lucas saw her walking down the aisle, he looked like the same boy who once fell in love for the first time, but stronger, wiser, whole. During the reception, he pulled me aside and said, "You know, I used to think closure came from other people. Now I know it comes from choosing peace instead of pain, and that hit me. Because all this time, I thought I was protecting him by shutting her out. Maybe I was, but maybe in the end, the real closure came when he faced that letter himself. After the wedding, I found that letter tucked inside his jacket pocket, not crumpled or torn, just folded neatly. I asked him why he kept it. He smiled and said, "Because it reminds me who I don't want to be, and how far I've come." Maybe Emma found her peace too. Maybe not, but that's not our story anymore. Ours is the one that ended with a dance under fairy lights, laughter echoing through the trees, and a man who finally believed he was enough all along. And for the first time in years, I stopped feeling angry. I just felt done completely. Finally done. It's been almost 4 years since that chapter of our lives finally closed. Sometimes I forget how raw it used to feel. The tension, the resentment, the endless what-ifs. Now, when I look at Lucas and Haley and their 2-year-old daughter running around in her little pink sneakers, it feels like that pain belonged to another lifetime. But life, being what it is, has a way of circling back quietly, unexpectedly. Last fall, I got an email. It wasn't from Lucas, not from Haley. It was from Emma. I almost deleted it without opening it. My hands literally hovered over the trash icon, but curiosity got the better of me. The subject line just said, "Thank you." The message was short. She wrote that she was living in Oregon now, working with a small nonprofit that helps women rebuild their lives after leaving controlling relationships. She said she thought of Lucas often, not in a longing way, but in a grateful one. "He was good," she wrote. And I didn't know how to handle good back then. Then at the bottom she added, "I just wanted to thank you for answering that phone call. I needed someone to tell me to stop before I made things worse. I listened, and it changed me. I sat there at my kitchen table for almost an hour, staring at those words, not out of anger, not even out of sadness, just acceptance. When I told Lucas about it, he didn't look angry either. He just nodded and said, "Good. Maybe now we can all let it go," and honestly, that's when I realized that closure doesn't always come from a big dramatic moment. Sometimes it comes from quiet, ordinary peace. Lucas and Haley live about 20 minutes from me now. They just bought their first real home together. It's not huge, not fancy, but it's filled with love. And with this weird, mismatched collection of furniture that screams first house in the most charming way possible, Haley has become like a sister to me. She told me once that she used to worry Emma would always have a shadow over their relationship, but that now she doesn't think about her at all. It's like she was part of the story that got us here, she said. But she's not in this chapter anymore. Lucas, though, he surprised me. He told me one night over a backyard fire that he forgave Emma years ago, but recently he actually sent her a letter himself. Not to rekindle anything, but to say thank you, he wrote. "You leaving forced me to grow. You showing up gave me closure. And your silence since then gave me peace." He said he didn't even know if she'd reply, and I don't think he cared if she did. It wasn't about her anymore. It was about him putting that part of his life to rest. Properly, with kindness instead of bitterness. A few weeks later, she replied, just a single line. "Thank you for letting me be human, that's all." And somehow that was perfect. Haley found out about the letter. Lucas told her himself. He said he didn't want there to be any secrets. Ever. She didn't get mad, she actually cried and hugged him. "You deserve peace," she said. "And so do I. I've never seen two people more solid last month." They renewed their vows privately at the same lake where they first got married. It wasn't planned. Lucas had just come home with flowers one Friday and said, "You know what? Let's do it again. Just us and the baby." They called me and Mom to come take pictures, watching them say their vows a second time. With more wrinkles, more patience, and more laughter, made me realize something that stuck with me since love isn't about avoiding pain. It's about choosing to heal through it. Together, as for me, I stopped holding grudges after that whole ordeal. I learned that sometimes people break things they don't know how to love. And sometimes, those same people learn how to love by living with what they broke. I don't know if Emma ever found someone new. Maybe she's single, maybe she's not, but in her last line, she said she finally learned what peace feels like. Quiet mornings, no guilt, no pretending. And honestly, that's all anyone really deserves in the end. So yeah, I guess this is the real ending. No screaming, no revenge. Just three people who were tangled in something painful, finally learning how to live without it defining them. Lucas and Haley's daughter, Clara, calls me Auntie M. It's funny. Every time she says it, it stings a little. But in a good way. Like the universe giving me one last wink that the story really did come full circle. And when I look at that little girl laughing in the sunlight, I know, truly know, that everything happened exactly how it was supposed to.